and we've got Joe, aka JBNY.
JBNY.
And I just want to say thank you very much, sir, for your time.
Oh,
It's
anytime.
uh, it's much appreciated. It's truly a commodity these days, and so you taking the time out of your schedule, out of your reef, whatever your family, your time, whatever. I appreciate you just taking the time to catch the community up on
Sure,
what's been happening with you, man.
sure. No worries.
So I just want to frame this right because Joe deserves a heck of a welcoming. I got into the hobby myself in 2005, 6 ish, and I know that you had an outstanding tank going in 2005. It is really what one of those tanks. I've been fortunate enough to talk with Rich Jackson. And he was another inspirational reefer back in, oh, there he is right there. And it really makes me stoked to catch up with what I say the legends, the OGs, the guys that were doing it back in the day. And I just wanted to kind of frame it that when I stepped into the hobby, you were already in. So I don't know exactly when you got in, but I know you were thriving from what I remember. I think you were thriving in 2005 with a beautiful, outstanding reef.
Yeah, 2005. I had been doing it. I probably like the online presence. Yeah, probably for a good 5 or 6 years at that point. Um, and then from the world of reef keeping. Yeah, I had like a big online presence because I think I either was moderating on the SPS forums or just doing a lot of threads. And I think at that time period, it was just we didn't really know how everything worked. You know what I mean? A lot of it was, here's how I think we should be doing flow, and here's, how alkalinity is important, and here's the type of things that we need to do with lights. And then I got involved with a whole bunch of lighting experiments because Sanjay at the time was doing 400-watt metal highlights, and I was using 250-watt metal highlights, and sort of like, are they really the same thing? Whatever. So I think I took like two or three of my lights that I had, and I pulled them off and I did some testing. And then people were like, no, you're not doing the testing right. You need to get a par meter and you need to do this. You need to construct, a way to test it. And everybody online sort of like came together and was like, here's how you can do it. Here's how you did the testing correctly. And then I was like, all right, let me try this. Let me try that. And everybody sort of gave me their opinions on it. And and then I got a couple phone calls from a few people who were like in the industry, who were doing like working with metal highlights and in the aquarium industry. And they were like, here's how this works. And they sort of explained how that. And then, um, and then I started testing lights. And then people started sending me lights. And then manufacturers started sending me ballast. And I think at one, then I eventually had like 18 or 25 lights that I tested and like 7 or 8 different ballasts on every combination. And I took pictures. I think my pictures of the tank and the different colorations of the bulbs were all Marine Depot. I know reached out to me at the time, and they posted them on there. Um, yeah, and that sort of like blew up. And then I from there I started doing speaking engagements and got more involved in writing either articles or just helping people um, take care of their SPS tanks and what to do. So yeah, and then I had tank of the month, but I had tank of the month I think a couple of years prior to that. Um, but yeah, that early time period was it was a fun time period. It was a lot of new people coming into the hobby. Everybody sort of like was getting along really well.
Yeah.
Everybody wasn't so money hungry, so it wasn't like that amount of like pressure to like
Mhm.
sell equipment or just hawk this or say that so it was a different time period where now it's tough to trust. I don't know. It's tough to trust almost anybody because you're really not sure if it's just been sponsored by somebody and they're telling you how great this product is from a sponsorship or something like that. So it was and it was exciting because I think when I had first started, like I started doing like everybody else. I went in and I was freshwater for a long time, and then I finally bought a house and I had enough room to like build a tank and put everything together, and I wanted to do saltwater. So I sort of moved into saltwater and reefs like everybody else did. And then first working with reefs, I started doing that. And then luckily, um, the owner of Reef Central is on Long Island, and a lot of the other people who were moderators at the time were on Long Island too. And I think in the very beginning of it, he reached out to me and was like, "Hey, we're getting like a frag swap together, and we're gonna, meet some people, and you want to come over and hang out and meet some of the, from the other people that you're talking to online." And I was like, "Okay." Um, and I didn't know who anybody was at the time, and that world and that community of reef keeping was pretty new to me. You know what I mean? Like I just started doing everything, and then yeah, so I met all these people, and from there, you had a face to put with everybody, and it was like a really nice introduction to the hobby with a lot of the people who were involved at the time. And then from there, I just sort of, kept making friends. And I didn't have any hesitation, I guess, to reach out to people online because of that initial friendships that I got. And then, yeah, and then just, Reef Central was a big thing back then. So from there, and then it just moved on to years and years and years doing it.
Yeah, so that was version one, right? I mean, so
Yeah.
I kind of went back and looked back at when you just started the version two, and I think that was roughly 2015, I think somewhere in that time frame.
So that first version was to about 2006, 2007, and I took it down. We were gonna like redo. We were gonna do some renovations in the house. We are gonna redo the
Uh-huh.
floors and everything else like that. So I was like, oh, perfect time to get a better tank and a bigger tank. So I took that 180-gallon tank down, and
Okay.
that was sort of like the version one. And then about a year later or so, put version two, which was a 270-gallon tank, which is sort of the same
Okay.
tanks that I have here. And that kicked off in 2008. And then that went to about 2012, 2013 or so. Um, and then I started having problems with that tank. And then but in that time period, I guess from like 2008 and 2013, that was like that's like when all the forums sort of exploded back then. If you remember, like there was this
Right.
massive banning, and everybody like fled the forums, and everybody, it wasn't the online presence of everybody wasn't as strong at that point, and social media really hadn't taken off. So while I, had the tank up and was talking about it online and doing things like that, I think that time period was a time period where not as much was happening in the forum world. And then that tank sort of crashed on me. I had an invasive sponge that like took over the whole tank. So back then there was this like sponge being sold in the hobby. It was like blue and a little bit fluorescent. It sort of looked nice, but people realized that it quickly like overgrew.
You talking about that plate and stuff? It was a real desirable looking sponge. It was kind of a bluish color.
Yeah, and
Yeah, it was gorgeous, but yeah, okay, so I see what you're saying. It was an encroaching encruster, if I remember
right,
correctly.
right. So what ended up happening is I had when I took that 180-gallon tank down, I took all my rock and I put it with someone. I put it actually in an aquarium to hold for me, and they did, but it got that sponge on it, and I didn't know that for years until I had actually had a bryopsis problem, and I had some dieback on some corals, and then when I pulled them out, this mat of just
Huh.
sponge was everywhere, and
Really weird.
yeah, so I tried to come at it like it wouldn't come apart. It wouldn't I
Hmm.
couldn't get it out. I remember we had Rich Ross at my house at the time, which is like 2012, and he's like, we can inject it with hydrogen peroxide or whatever it was, and we're in my tank and we're trying to nothing. So eventually I took every bit of rock and I threw the whole thing out, and then I had to start over. So the tank you're talking about then is like from like 2014 15 on is the second version of that. And that tank did phenomenal. Same thing. I got Reef tanks in a month on Reef to Reef, I think, on that one. And a few other things. So
It would have been interesting in the day of ICP, to be able to sample, because with that sponge, I'm wondering, like what I've learned a little bit more. I've been in the hobby a little less than you, but for a little while. And I've got into gardening, right? And I got
right.
really deep into it, and living soil and so forth. And I'm wondering if, like a weed, maybe it was sequestering something specifically so that when it started to like die back, or you started handling it, maybe it started releasing whatever it was like sequestering in the
You know,
tank.
it really so much was not. It wasn't like killing off my. I mean, it was killing off the tank in respects that it was eventually just overgrowing the corals. Like it wasn't like releasing anything that I was losing corals because of that. Like I noticed it initially because of some dieback that I had, and then I was like, oh my god. So then I tried to get it out, and then I was like, you know what? I'll just leave it there. And then it just kept growing, and then it would just start growing over a colony, and it would just
Right.
crumble when I tried to get it out. And eventually, I was just like, it was up on the walls, and everyone was underneath the rocks somewhere, so it was just everywhere. And so I was just like, enough of this. I spent like a year trying to get it out of the tank, and then I was just like, I had enough of this whole thing, and then we took all the rock out, got rid of it all, and then started from scratch.
Yeah, and sometimes I guess that's the only solution.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, goodness, back then, I mean, we'll dive deeper into it as the conversation moves along. But I look at, I'm even looking back at your reefs back then, and I look at the reefs of today, and I really, I see, if if we had LEDs, a little bit more blue back in the day, I don't think you could tell a difference between the tanks. In fact, I would argue that the systems look healthier, if anything. And I know that I'm not leading you, but I know that there's live rock probably is a participating factor. Lighting could be riddled into that a little bit as well. Because have trended more in the direction of certain types of lighting and whatnot. So, I mean, with you being kind of a metal halide, very much a pioneer, someone who's worked with many different bulbs. I
Yeah.
mean, many different spectrums, different temperatures, or same thing, but different wattages, different ballasts, things of this nature. I'm sure you probably have a really firm understanding of that technology as it translates to coral keeping, specifically acropora.
Yeah.
And I don't know anybody who would probably, with metal halide, have that kind of insight. I mean, I'm a T5. I've been doing T5 since about 2005, 6, but so I have those sort of insights. But yeah, the metal halide really pioneered and kind of set the hobby off, and I still think to this day, probably, in my humble opinion, I still think it's the best tech, personally.
Yeah,
If
I
if
mean, I,
if you
I
can
I would
get it
say I don't
right.
know if I would say it's the best tech because LEDs are more efficient and not as much heat and everything, but they
I would,
definitely
yeah, tech is
did the
probably a bad
best. I
word.
think they
Yeah,
did the best job for both
replication.
aesthetically and growing coral and keeping them healthy and everything.
Right.
When I set up the tank that I've got now, I uh I went away from it mostly because everything was just getting too difficult to get. Like if the ballast went, what am I going to do? And the bulbs were
Mhm.
just more and more difficult to find and becoming more and more expensive. And the whole world had been moving to metal highlight anyway. And I was just like, you got to jump on that train at some point. So you might as well just do it and
Yeah.
then and work it out that way. So,
Yeah, I'm just fortunate that that the day of hybrids are still a thing, and T5s are still being produced. So for
oh
me,
yeah,
I'm still using an old ATI fixture right now on my little reef, but
yeah, will last you forever. Yeah,
it,
yeah.
it man, it's like It's got to be at least 10 years old now, I mean, at least.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. Oh, Richard, asking did that sponge strip the nutrients? It did. It did. It did not. It didn't. It. I mean, other than the fact that it grew all over everything, it didn't cause any problems. Like it could be sitting right next to corals, and the corals didn't mind. It didn't do anything, but eventually it just was encroaching, so it would just literally grow
Yeah.
over the corals. And it would just start taking over your rock and everything else like that. So that was really um, the biggest problem with that.
So more of a physical like type of deal, like where it just
It's just
encroached and
it's just an infestation and everything else like that.
yeah.
And then the worst part about that whole thing was that when I first found it, I said it was like a baraphsis incident that I had, and you get it sometimes and it just gets inside of a colony and you lose the colony. And so I had done that had happened, and then I had found it and I had this baraphsis invasion, but that invasion of a baraphsis happened like 3 weeks before I had Julian sprung at my house and Sanja. I had this big because I knew all those people at that time, and we
That's
were
how
all
it
going to
works.
meet at the aquarium, the Long Island Aquarium, and they were coming over to my house for a barbecue like before. And it was like 2 weeks prior to that, my whole tank crashed. And
Oh, gee.
Julian's over, and he's like trying to be nice, like, "Oh, this is nice." When Julian's not, you don't have to say anything. The tank looks like crap. I understand. It just things happen. It happened at the worst time. I have like a million people at my house. Everybody who was like the people in the reef keeping world are there, and it was like the whole tank crashed on me. Right before. So yeah, yeah, yeah. But anyway, when that happened, yeah, that sponge happened there. But so what are you gonna do on that? But yeah, on meta highlights, yeah, I think they're great. You know what I mean? And you can and the nice thing is you can have success whatever you like. You know what I mean? If you like a whiter light, you like a bluer light, you could grow corals and be successful with it regardless. It wasn't like as temperamental as LEDs can be. So that was sort of the nice thing with it as well. It was a lot more forgiving. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. So you were going. I think if I understand correctly, this the tank that you did, like I guess the version 2 through version 3. You were, I think, recently we're going to set it up, and then did you end up getting another tank made by Glass Cages, and then that's kind of what landed where you landed right now currently? Is
So
that
the
do I
so the
understand?
tank that I have right now was I bought because the tank that I initially had, which was by Aquarium Obsessed, who don't make tanks anymore, um, it sprang a leak.
Uh,
Um,
okay.
so I came home from um Manhattan Reef's brag swap, and I had taken a bunch of corals out the morning before I went into the city for that. And when I came home, there was a bunch of like water on like the sill around the tank, and I was like, all right, I was pulling frags out and pulling things like out before I went. Maybe I just didn't clean up as well as I thought I did, so I cleaned it up. And then a half hour later, a little bit of water there, and I'm like, that's not right. Marked it again, showed back up again. And I was like, oh my goodness, I've got a leak in my tank. So the good thing is, so I called up Joe Ailo, who I'm good friends with, who's down the road from me, and he runs the Long Island Aquarium. And I was like, dude, my tank is leaking. What? And he was like, send me pictures. Everything is like they goes, all right. So don't panic. You can put a bar clamp on it. I go, I have bar clamps. I do woodworking as well. So he showed me what to do and everything else like that. And we put a clamp on the side of the tank, and it stopped it from leaking. And then he came over and he's like, let's see if we can repair it. Sometimes I've got some stuff what we can do, on the inside and everything else like that. So we tried to do that and we were unable to fix it at all. And I mean, it wasn't leaking a lot, but it was leaking. You know what I mean? I'm like,
Right.
you get like maybe 2 or 3 tablespoons in like a 12-hour period. But that's enough to, eventually it's going to give way. So put the clamp on there, and then with the bar clamp, it's never it's never going to open up, you know what I mean? Because it can't go anywhere. So that was safe. And then COVID happened. And then I mean, that happened right in the middle of a lot of other, like, so at the time period, right when that happened, my dad had just had a stroke like a week prior to that or 2 weeks prior to that. And I had other things to worry about. Like my dad's fine now, everything's good. He's actually like they live like right around the corner, so it was very close to me when everything was happening. And and then I had that problem with the tank. And I remember like trying to talk to people I knew, like trying to get a new tank at the time. I'm like walking through the hospitals, talking to Joe Caparella over at Unique Corals. And I was like, I need a new tank because of this and that. And he's like, all right. And I was like, let me call you back. And then it just other things, obviously other things are going on. So I never got around to it. And then COVID happened. And then, there was nothing, I wasn't able to do anything. And then I just sort of left and the tank worked fine with the bark clamp on. So I just sort of left it like that for a while. And then, you know, COVID happened. I got involved in other things. I started doing other things like that. I changed my job and then just, life sort of changed a little bit. And then so I just sort of like put this on hold for a little bit of time and then came back to it, a couple of years later. And that's sort of like why I just sort of like disappeared in the hobby from everybody got like in COVID, everybody else jumped into the hobby like, both feet because they were home doing nothing. And I ended up moving in like other directions because I couldn't do anything with the tank. It started to crash on me in the middle of the cold. What am I gonna do? So I just sort of left it as like a fish only tank for like 2 years. And then I was like, all right, let me get this tank moving. Let me get a new one there. I started making phone calls and finally got in touch with Joe over at Glass Cages. And like just as I'm ordering the tank and getting it ready to go, the tank, the old tank has another leak. And I was like, what the
Oh,
hell's happening? So I'm talking to Joe, like, listen, we got to get this tank going. Like, I got another leak on the tank. I can't believe this is happening. So I was like, all right. I was initially going to be like, take the old tank down and get I was originally going to like get the new tank and then have enough time to like take everything out of the old tank, maybe put it in buckets or something like that, and transfer everything over and do it like that. And then it happened in January that I started having a problem with the tank and it started leaking. So I was like, the whole tank's got to come down. So I just took everything out. And I was like, at that point, I was just like, I'm just getting rid of everything. I'm just going to start fresh. The sand had been in there for like from when I first set it up in 2008. So the sand was almost like 18 years old, and the rock was like 12 years old. And I was just like, I'm going to start fresh. I'm going to do everything brand new, and we'll just start from a whole new world and do it that way. So um, I took the tank down, and when I took the tank down, I paid more attention to sort of like where that leak was coming from, and then it ended up being that there was a worm that had eaten through the silicone in the bottom middle of my tank.
what?
And it had yeah, and it had like that little gap that you've got at the bottom where you've got like you can see like mine had black silicone on it. There was like a little bit of like, you could see something had dug into there. And if you've had a tank for like 15, 18 years, things eat into the silicone here and there. And but I was paying more attention to sort of like where the leak was and where those things were. And I'm looking through it. And then one day I'm looking and I'm like, is there something moving in there? And I pull a camera out, I look in there, and sure enough, there's a little worm in there. And he's obviously had been there for a while and he was dug enough into it. And I guess he, popped out of the other end. And
Oh
there's
God.
nothing in there. And then I had a little leak, and then I guess he'd move or something like that. And then a piece of sand would probably get in there and stop for a little bit and it would start. And I guess that's why it was an intermittent problem when it first happened. Um, but that's what ended up causing that other leak. So at the time when I took it down, I had like clamps everywhere. I had clamp on the
Oh,
regular
shit.
side, and then I clamped on the other side. And then I mean, when I was all happening, I was talking to Joe over at Glass Case. He goes, "Dude, your tank, you get clamps everywhere." You go, "That tank will never. You don't have to worry about it. It's never going to be able to come apart. So don't worry about that. But just take it apart and everything else like that." So yeah, so we had, I hired some people to come in and take it apart who we couldn't even get it off the stand. It had been there so long. So they actually ended up cutting the silicone and pulling it out in pieces and everything. Um, but yeah, but then it was like the middle of the winter. So I just got rid of everything, the sand and everything else like that, and started, waited for the new tank to come in, and I got the new tank in um June of this year, and spent the summer sort of like getting it set up, getting it installed, and then I just redid everything, because it had been sitting there for like, the old tank had been there and set up. I initially set everything up in like 2008, And you know, almost everything was how I wanted to do it when I made it. You know what I mean? I was like, this is how I want to do this. And I didn't really have many issues, but there were a couple things here and there that I wanted to change on what I did. So I just took the opportunity to be like, fix this exactly how you wanted to do. You're not going to do this again, probably. So I, replumbed the whole thing and changed some things out down in the fish room, down in the basement, and then set this up. And then this tank got water in it and filled in the mid September, and
Is
yeah,
it
so
the
now
same?
it's right around 5 months now.
Is it the same dimensions?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
the same dimensions. It's a rimless, and the people who had they're like, you dude, you had a tank that leaked and you bought a rimless, but I always wanted one, and I had a lot of discussions with Jovich at Glass Cages, and he was like this. I absolutely, like at first he was like, give me a day to like double check and everything else like that, and then he came back. He goes, I can do it. I can guarantee it. It'll be fine. So I was like, all right, let's do that. It's a different look. I had that tank in there for like 17 years. So, you know, it's in my living room. So it's sort of like, you eventually you build everything else around it. So it's got like shelving on both sides, so I didn't really want to just change the dimensions of it and everything else like that. And I liked the furniture that it was on and I had built it and everything else like that. So yeah, I kept the same dimensions. It's just a rimless. And then the change that I made on it is that so I did not do my overflows are internal overflows. I did not do like the bean animal one from the back and everything. I didn't want to do any of that. I went and a lot of people like you should do that. You gives you more room. But I went and looked at like three or four people who had those external overflows set up, and every one of them had salt creep and all this stuff on the back of it. And I was like, I don't want it back there because I can't get to it. Like if I put something back there, it's against the
Right.
wall. There's not like and then through having that last tank for like 18 years, at some point you have to like reset the bulkheads. Like it just happens, not maybe if you have a tank for 5 years or 6 years, it's not going to happen. But I think that if you have a tank for, 15, 18 years, there's a chance that you might have to get in there and readjust the bulkhead at some point. And I would never be able to do that there. You know what I mean? Like I could never get to it. It'd be too difficult. So I was just like, I want to do an internal one. I know how they work. They're easy to do. So I instead of having on the old tank, I used to have two um, overflows on both sides. And initially, I wanted to do it just on the right side, and I did it on my tank thread. Everybody convinced me not to do it. No, no, no. In case something happens, you want to make sure you have a redundancy. But I never had any problems at all, and I always wanted to have it on. So I put on the right hand side like I wanted to do it, and I'm actually much happier that I did it that way. So it's really just two drains coming down, 1.5 inch, and then one drain coming up, 1.5 inch, in the overflow over there, and yeah, and that's it. Um,
Is the overflow all the way from the top to bottom of the glass to the top of the glass?
Yep.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, you know what, man, I'm looking at a tank that I have that I'm going to set up, and it's got that old corner style overflow, and I just remember there was a lot of killer shit that went down in that part of the tank. A lot of cryptic stuff that I thought added a lot of value to the tank. Whether it be like pods or different little critters that seem to do really well in
Yeah.
that zone. So I'm a big fan of it. I've had the on the back overflow design, and I see, yeah, yeah, yeah. It depends how it's made. I mean, Innovative makes a good one. I had theirs, and I was really impressed with how they did their overflow design, where it's like the back of the glass. It's
Right.
back. It's beautiful, but and it's drilled. The overflows are drilled through the glass. Um, but yeah, this is longevity. This is something that's going to really do well over the course of time. So,
Yeah.
so
And it's
you're
not so much that I was like, it's gonna leak but it's just like if I had a problem, like there's
you
nothing I
can't
can
get
do.
to it.
I can't get to it. There's no way I can get to it.
No. Mine was 36-inch, so I could easily go either side. I could access mine, so it was no problem at all. But at 72 inches, if
Yeah.
it's in the center and it's one of those styles,
And it's
yeah,
always
it's
gonna
going to
be
be
in the center. Like it's always if it happens, it's always gonna be in the worst place that it can
right.
possibly be, and
Of
I'm not
course.
gonna be able to get to it.
Yeah, yeah, of course it will. Yeah, that's really cool, man. All right, so you landed on the new tank, 72 inches long by what, 36 by 24?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, so that was Mo who asked that out there. Hey Mo, what's up? Matt's out there. Ernest, what's up? Yazin Reef, what's up? Yep, a lot of good, lot of the regular out there today joining up. Appreciate that. So yeah, cool, man. So what is the all right, so tell me about we got the design of the tank that lands on roughly 270, 250 to 270, I'm
Yeah.
assuming somewhere in that
Yep.
area.
It's around
Yeah.
two. It's 270. The total water volume is probably about 330.
Okay, cool. So your sump is what, like a 75-gallon sump or something like that?
Yeah, it's a 90-gallon sump
Okay.
that is not does not have 90 gallons in it. So it is way overkill for the amount of water that I keep into it and everything else like
Hmm.
that. I really, when I first put it in there, and I'm very happy with it, and I would do it over again. Um, on the 180-gallon tank, the amount of times that I overflowed that sump was more than it should have been. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like you shut everything down. You're like, hey, I've
Yeah,
got stuff, and then you don't realize that, like, I don't know, something over time, you're always like, oh, I got this much room, but then something happens that doesn't. And I was just like, when I put the new one in, I was like, I want to never have that problem that this sump could overflow again. So I made sure that I had double the capacity that I would need in case something ever happened and I need to put. So
sure.
it's a huge amount of space down there, and I only use probably like the 8 inches of it is filled, but it'll go up. Um, I don't even know, 20 inches or so. So I got a ton of room on there. I'll bring it. I will go down there. I can show you what's down in
Okay.
the equipment room and everything else like
So
that.
m- my memory serves me. I know you were using one of the original um was it the Pax, is it the Pax Bellum
Pax
maybe? The
Bellum. So yeah, I was probably, if anybody bought the Pax Bellum, it's probably because I had it and I spent a lot of time.
Yeah,
I
you were
loved
one
it
of
in the
the OGs of
beginning,
that
and
one.
I really pushed it on a couple vendors who I was friends with because at the time when I got it, um, it worked great. And Tristan makes a great product, and I think at the time in the end, I think I ended up getting one that was much larger than I needed to have for the system, but
Right.
it fell prey to, like, it worked great. Like when I first got it, it did great on nutrient removal. The amount of chaetomorpha that I grew was just incredible, and I was able to pull out like a huge amount, like this thick on it, and but like everybody who grows Cato for a while, it just seems to, like, it just stalls one time and then it crashes. And then you're continually having issues trying to keep it going
Mhm.
long term. You know what I mean? Like, I was able to get it going fine for like a couple of years, but having it go for years and years and years was it stopped. It
It's a
stopped.
lot easier to reach down in the middle compartment of a just an old
Yeah.
fashioned sump and reach your hand down in there and grab a wad and throw it out in the
Yep,
yard, you
yep,
know?
and then the whole thing of just taking it apart, and then the way they had it
Yeah.
so that it would stay in there, when you took it out, it made a mess. In the
Yeah.
end, I didn't like it nearly as much as I did when I first had it. So, yeah, but
Sometimes you
but
gotta ask
what ended
yourself,
up
you know?
happening out of that is that I really stopped using Refusium. So
Mhm.
that just sort of, like, it stalled on me, and then I never really replaced it, and I never really had algae problems. So I was just like, I just stopped using refugiums. So now on this tank, I don't have one right now. I'm not initially planning on it. We'll see how it goes. I mean, if I have to put one in, I'll do something, but right now I'm building this without it.
All right, so let me wrap my mind around this conceptually. So we're using a lot of original placement and everything, similar dimensions, 90-gallon sump. Lighting was asked by Mose. It looks like he's asking, are you using
Those are
Stratton's?
Stratons and everything else like that. So yeah,
ATI, man. Yeah, ATI is
yeah,
good stuff.
let me see if I can move over.
Oh my
So
God, those are gorgeous, dude.
yeah, they're nice. I mean, look how how
Oh
thin
my
that is.
God.
Yeah.
Can you imagine having that shit back in
No,
2005?
I can't imagine that at all.
Oh my God.
And so so what I did with this is that yeah, I'll move back a little bit so you can see it a little bit. So
Beautiful, man. I love the look. I like that big light up top. That is super cool. Like,
yeah, so I ended up, because I used to have a Geisman um pendant over this, and I
Uh-huh.
had the same. So I had it like drilled where these you can see like where I've got
The cables,
the
yeah.
wires, the cables. I had those two set up on the old one, and that Geeseman pendant was like 55, 60 pounds, and I had no problems with the chew. So when I put this together, the whole thing weighs like 42 pounds. So I just was like, well, I'm just going to use the existing everything that I have because I like that look of,
Yeah, me
just,
too.
yeah,
Like the floating light. Yeah,
yeah.
it takes me back to that one guy from that was one of the first to have this really like that I could remember anyway, like the Reef in the Sky. You remember that dude back in the day?
Oh, yeah,
Andrew from China. Remember
yeah,
that badass, like it was so sleek looking the way he had his lights on cables and it would go up and down on the cables and
yeah.
yeah, yeah, it just looked really cool how it was floating and that sort of looks this like very similar, very ergonomic. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like rerouted all the cables, so that instead of being out there, they just go through a little a wire wrap and then just down and underneath the tank. So it's yeah, it came out great. I'm really happy with
So
how
what
everything came
month
out.
where are you at right now on this build?
About 5 months on there. So right
Okay.
now I'm struggling with frags, and it's mostly because it's dry rock and dry sand, and
Yeah.
then when I first was doing it, I hadn't like a lot of the people who probably have been keeping tanks for a while. um your live rock is all you know, and you know how live
Yeah.
rock works, and you read about people who have dry rock, and they say the ugly phase, because the ugly phase doesn't really exist in live rock, not like it does in dry rock. And so I was like, yeah, I'll just go with dry rock. How difficult could it be? And it wasn't
Yeah.
like overly difficult, but it's just a different way of
It
doing
is.
things than you're used to. So I had to.
You
It
just have to
they
go through it, man.
Yeah, I just have to go, and they suck up so much phosphates, which was something that I
Oh,
was
it
not
does. It's
initially
a
prepared
sponge.
for. Yeah, like I was like, whatever, I'll just let it do its cycle and everything, and I ended up having to like dose phosphates like mad to keep them, and they just kept getting sucked up by the rock and everything else like that. And
Yep.
the same thing with the corals is that now I'm struggling a little bit with the corals. Um, they do fine, and it's the same type of problem that other people have when newbies have when they first put it in corals. I'm trying to make it happen in the first 4 or 5 months, um, and it's just they do well for like a couple weeks, and then they start losing some tissue and recession, and then I lose them, and then I really realized in the last couple of weeks it's just my phosphates were bottoming them out in the middle of the night. So I would be testing my phosphates, and they'd be like, oh, I'm at 0.3 or 4 or 5. I'm fine. And then, but I was only testing at night. So I got up early and I started testing like early in the morning before the lights came on, and they were 0. And then I was like, oh, and I tested it like 6 in the morning, 0. And then 8 in the morning, it was 0. And I kept testing, and wasn't until like 2 o'clock in the afternoon that they went up to like 1 o'clock, like 0.01. And then from there, they, you know, they started coming up, but they were sitting at 0 for a long time. So on the coral standpoint for frags, it's really you don't really want them to bottom out. And the fact that they were doing that um was what I think is the problem that I had with the frag. So I just only like 4 or 5 days ago set up my doser to dose phosphates. And so now I'm dosing that at night from 11 till 7 in the morning. I'm dosing phosphates, and then it starts again at 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm dosing at a lower schedule from 9 in the morning to 6 o'clock at night. Um, so yeah, so we'll see how that is. But I think that'll turn it around. I initially thought it was, maybe it's just trace elements or something like that, but I'm using Triton like I had before because I had some extra left over. Um, and I don't think it was. I don't. It's not that. So I'm pretty convinced that it'll be the phosphate. So time will tell. But that's sort of the experiment with it right now, and I think that yeah, I think it should work out fine. But yeah,
Yeah,
so
you've got a couple things. It's everybody who was in back in the original days that takes a break and comes back post live rock, Fiji live rock specifically. Um, really any live rock, but the Gulf live rock is really a good option, but it's not even as good as Haitian in my opinion. But I don't want to digress too far into that. But there's something about the bacteria and it being a conduit between the phosphate and the coral's ability to gather. And there's just not the rock probably is out competing the corals. So it's
right.
just it's just taking that in and
It's
it's
just a new
sucking it
tank,
right
right?
in.
Right. Normally, you buy live rock and it's already been in the ocean
Yeah.
for forever, so it's absorbed. It's fully saturated on phosphates and nitrates, so it's really not an issue. But when you get this man-made rock,
Yep.
it takes some time to sort of just get it back to where you want it to be for the tank. And I mean, the good thing is that I think in the fact that I was watching phosphates in the beginning more, now I'm doing it a little bit more, but I there's no real algae on this tank. You know what I mean? Like I didn't really have
Right.
a big issue with, let me see if I could just pull. Um
Joe, we and Alan been getting into it about remember how like that green, that real beautiful green haze that I don't know about you, but I remember I used to use that as like sort of my phosphate barometer on on my tank back during live rock. Now keep this in mind.
yeah,
But if I went 2 days, then I would feel like that's where I wanted my phosphates to be. Every day I felt like, maybe they needed to come down. And then if it wasn't showing up at all, and this is the thing I've been seeing with uh, dry rock tanks, especially in my situation too, is that it takes forever to start getting that beautiful green haze. And I used to be so annoyed by it. It just started showing up on my reef at 14 months. I'm 14 months in right now, and it just started showing up maybe a month ago, like to where it's there almost every day now. And I see it, and I'm like giddy about green haze algae, man. Like like who would think, right?
yeah, yeah,
Um, but it's like one of these things, and we kind of got into that a little bit of is there a food source that could be releasing from that glass, whether it be the pod eggs or maybe it's a secondary form of phytoplankton or something like this. But there's definitely something to it that gives me the very good feeling that polyps are normally out during that time. I'm normally seeing them really waving out around and stuff.
yeah.
And the phosphate generally is coming back pretty strong on the test kit. So I think that's just something that came as an automatic. Like
Yeah.
you could put live rock in your tank, and within 2 to 3 weeks, I really feel like you could be already putting acros in there if you were
Yep.
doing it properly.
Yep.
And I just think that's a little hiccup. It's not to say that it can't happen. It's just a different way of strategizing as you're building out your reef right now.
Yeah.
And it's really cool because you kind of got this open canvas right now. I see you're starting to get corals in the tank and whatnot, but you want to dive into a little bit more on the fish.
Yeah. So right now, I'm gonna do what I did last time, which is lots of little fish. So right now I've got a, what do I have in there? I have see if you can see. So I've got a school of, if you can see them, um they are Duchelier damsels.
Is
Um
that the yellow ones? The
no, those are the blue ones. So
Oh yes, those are
yeah,
the azure.
yeah, and
The azures.
they're nice. Like they're school, they're tight school. They eat well. They don't bother anybody.
No, they're
I
pleasant too.
Yeah, so I've got them in there. I've got three flame angels, one coral beauty. I
Wow.
like pygmy angels. I kept like five or six in my last tank. I know people like
Wow.
don't put them in with acros, but they're fine. Like
Yeah, it is.
everything eventually gets along. And then right now I've got I've got some firefish, and then I've got some orchid backs in there. I think right now there's I mean, because the tank is new, so I wanted to put some other things in there, but yeah, the problem is when you're putting in new things, listen, like everybody else has been doing it for a while, you don't really quarantine like they tell you should. So every time, you
Mhm.
put it in there, and not 90% of the fish do well, but when you lose a fish, then I like have to be like, all right, well, let's wait a couple of weeks to make sure there's nothing else going on with the rest of the tank. But everything's doing pretty good. I think there's just slightly under 20 fish in here right now. Um, and as time goes on, I'll do I want to put Antheas back in there. I used to have that Tuca Antheas. I had that big school of like 18 of them for like 4 years in the tank. And so I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that again. I tried to do that. I think that was a lot of luck that made that one happen. But I'll put Antheas in the tank. I'm going to put if I put a tang in there, it'll just more be maybe like a hippo tang. I don't really do a lot of. I don't do big fish. I like having, on
Mhm.
the last tank, I think I had 62 fish in the tank, and it was just the whole tank was like fish everywhere. It was swimming everywhere. It was a lot of movement. I thought it made the tank look exciting, interesting, and while you know I like having the fish in there, I'm a coral person. Like initially
Mhm.
I couldn't care less about the fish. It was all about corals, and over time, I do like the fish a lot more. But I don't go crazy for them. I'm not looking for like exotic ones that nobody can find or that are super expensive. I like small fish that are peaceful and get along with everybody. I already spent time, years and years and years ago with putting semi-aggressive fish or see if I could get a couple things to get along. And it just changed the dynamics of the tank. And I found that if I put fish that got along with everybody, that the whole tank just did better. All the fish would I never had any diseases in my tank. I never had any problems in my tank. I would literally just put in fish, and then like 18 years later they would die, or I just give them to somebody else. um the same thing, like even when my last tank, all the fish I gave over to Joe over at the aquarium, and he was like, do you want them back? I'm like, I've had them for like 17 years. Like, put them in your big giant reef tank. I'll visit them there, let them live like live out the rest of their lives in a
Oh
big
yeah.
giant tank and everything else like that. I'll start with newer ones. So I think that, if you put fish that get along, and then you pay attention to, that the dynamics that when you're putting them in there, I think that your fish will just do fine. I mean, I don't know. I know I don't have any. When people ask questions about, fish disease, it's like I don't have any problems. Like, as long as they make it in my tank in the first week or two, they're in there for years. Whatever their lifespan is, they'll generally make it. Um,
I
so
like
so
the
yeah,
scape, man. The scape is
this scape I
definitely,
love. I'm really happy with it. Yeah, I did
yeah,
it.
that looks killer, man.
Yeah,
It
it's
looks like you've
all.
got it. It looks like you've got minimal points of contact. Look at them caves.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
you can
like the
see
way
it
you did
all the
it. You
way.
got plenty of flow, ability to get flow throughout the reef.
Yeah, I'm really happy with it. I did it with like all. It's like so many arches. Like I'm gonna say like 80% of this is arches, and because of
Yeah,
that,
killer.
it's just all it's just all open. You can see like
Ah, it's killer, man.
yeah. I'm really happy with how it
You
came
know
out.
when you get like some stags and shit growing all up on top of that reef, like all them acros real heavy, it's gonna
Yeah,
look super cool seeing the fish have all them spots throughout the system to cut through and dart through and whatnot. It's gonna look really sweet.
yeah. No, I
Nice
agree with it.
looking. So that sand bed, what do you got? A mixture of like what crushed coral and reef
No, it's
sand?
just
Or
it's just Carib Sea special grade.
okay,
Um
so it's a thicker grade though.
it's a
Yeah.
thicker grade. So I had always done my sand beds with like Home Depot like play sand, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I just used to go there and just pick up whatever they had, and then I'd rinse it off and I'd throw it in the tank, and it was always fine. I never had any problems with it. But um it's so fine that the everything blows it all over the place and everything else like that, and it's just it makes a mess here and there. So when I did this, the new one, I was like, you know what, I don't want to have that problem again. So I'm gonna go and because with the sand bed, I've always had it in there, and then Sanjay always every time he'd be over talking to me, he'd be like, dude, get just get thicker, have bigger sand, and put it over in all these corners. Like he goes,
Mhm.
I had to do that all over my tank. Just keep doing that, and you'll make it so that you don't have these bare spots everywhere. And I did it a little bit, and then I didn't like the look of like mixed sand, and it would always blow anyway. And then I was like, forget it. So then when I did this one, I was like, I'm gonna just put like a bigger sand.
No, that's a good grain. And all your cucumber will work through that just fine. And
Yeah.
yeah, everything seems to do pretty well through. Excuse me. Like, of course, I never get phone calls. But then all of a sudden, yeah, two in this live stream. But so yeah, so Mo was saying he was just referencing, look, he's saying maybe try to source some of those milkas and things like that, then bigger corals that somebody has locally just for a while to help seed the tank with the the bacteria of the coral, um yeah,
Yeah, we'll see.
interpreting it.
I was at somebody else's house like 2 weeks ago, and because I was just picking up like luckily in our community locally, we have enough people who we've all known each other for a long time that will give each other frags to help out and everything else like that. When I so he's like, oh, take this and put this in. I'm like, I don't want this type of coral in my tank. And he's like, but you don't have anything in your tank. Just put it in there. And I go, I'm not. I'm like, I'm okay with like a bear tank for a little while. I want to like every time I would like he's like take this Bacilla core, it'll do great. I go no, it's gonna go and it's gonna just pop up and proliferate everywhere in my tank, and I'm gonna
Oh
have
yeah.
little stuff. I don't want that in my tank. He goes, I go nope. I'm fine
No
with
more
the
posse
discipline
for me to.
and everything else like that. I'm like I know what I want to have in my tank, and then like this is the time period where everybody's impatient. I'm impatient too, but like, I've learned from the past that if I just throw things in there, that a year and a half later, I'm unhappy that I did that because they
Yeah.
invariably attach to something and I can't get them out or something like that. And then I've got, like I won't put encrusting Montipora or plating Montipora in my tank anymore. Like I'm not going to do
I
it.
mean,
Like,
it's the sign of I mean, I think as we get, I mean, obviously I feel like there's something that with age too, but you just I look at it like I have a tank that I'm kind of waiting to upgrade into, and I'm in no hurry. I'm just so happy with the little thing that I've got, and I'm cool with it. And I think you just gain this different appreciation, where you're just like, I don't need to get there overnight. I mean, I can,
yeah,
I've done this for so many times and so many different tanks. It's like sometimes for me, like now, I enjoy the slow, planned out, and especially if you got this brand new glass, you got this whole new way of looking at this reef. You can really look at it and say, what can I do now? I got this kick-ass scape. I got a nice sand bed laid out. I got a killer lighting system that's beautiful over the set. What's the hurry? Take your
yeah,
time, then. If you are patient enough to take your time, there's so many of these stages that I've fallen in love with again in the hobby from taking a break where I enjoy the stuff. I look past coral all the time now. I look right past it. I'm just like acans. I have acans right now, and I never had them, and I'm just blown away by acans right now. And I've been an acro guy for 20 years, man. And it's like, so I think that's the cool thing about taking that little break. And now you got this really nice canvas, and it's like, okay, now I can really just do my artwork now, and I can learn from where to put a staghorn versus a coral that's going to plate versus a Monty cap, for example. You can just really use a lot of that experience from the past to really push this reef to the where you want it to be and get that vision. So
yeah.
yeah, kudos for your
Yeah, I mean,
patience.
I'll put some other things other than acros and stuff like that in the tank. I think right now I'm disappointed because I wanted the acros just to like take off right from right when I put them in there, and they're sort of struggling, and I'm like, let me just sort of work this out. But in my head, I'm sort of thinking that. But I've got those torches in there. They're doing fine. And I'll put some other ones in there. I'll take some advice from some of the comments in there, and look into that as well. And put some stuff in there for the meantime until it starts going, and then I mean, luckily know enough people in the area that they're all like, you can put whatever in your tank. If you don't want it, you have somewhere else I can always, trade it to, get rid of it, bring it back to the
Oh,
store
yeah.
or something like that. So, that's
Especially
how
up
it
in your
works.
area, because Yeah, the Northeast is concentrated with so many old schoolers, newcomers. I mean, it's just such a really good the whole Northeast really is such a great reefing community. So I know that they're pretty tightly woven up there. I know the Boston Society was really knitted really well
Yeah.
back in the day. I've never had a privilege to be a part of it. I'm a Tampa reefer from starting, and then Orlando-ish area, which is now kind of the new day kind of place where a lot of people want to go for corals and whatnot. But yeah, it's really cool to see where the hobby's going. I'm really stoked that you took the time to walk me through it. Now, now I have a really good understanding, and it's going to be so cool to watch it evolve.
Yeah.
And
I'll bring you downstairs. I'll show
yeah,
you.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
everything. You have time, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We're in for it as long as you're down, brother. I'll be here.
Yeah. So just to show you sort of like what, yeah, this is the overflow. And then, so he also
Okay.
convinced me to put, like, this is like a vinyl backing. And I was
Yeah.
like, it's great. I love it. I mean, I was going back and forth when I was talking with Joe, and he was like, because it was just an expensive upgrade, and I was like, this, come on, just put, I could just prime it and paint it. And he was like, not to say it. So anyway, I ended up I like it. But this is where I have the overflow, and I've got these.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and
And
these.
yet you have one on the other side too, or
No, I don't. I was
just
just
the
put
one?
one. So this side, like when you look at it, you can see
Yeah, but
the
it's not
overflow there. But when you go over to the other side, um,
full glass.
it's full glass, and it's like 36 inches. So it's such a nice
Ah,
amount of space. Yeah, so
yeah,
I'm
man,
really
that's gonna look sick when you do
gonna look
that
great.
end-to-end shot from that
Yeah,
angle. When you build that reef up,
yeah.
it's gonna look so cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's when, and I want it that way because when you come into this room, this is where you see it like from
Yeah,
this
that's your
angle
first
looking into
angle.
it, and so you don't notice it at all there. So
Yeah.
yeah, so let me
Beautiful room,
take you
man.
downstairs. Thank you. And then
Nice. So you're going, what, down into a basement?
I'm going down into a basement. Yeah, we're in the Northeast, so we've all got base here. I used to have everything underneath the tank, and then when I was at that Reef Central thing where I told you I was at, and the owner had his tank, and he like everything's downstairs, and I was like, what? He goes, once you get over like cutting a hole in your floor, it's great. So so this is what I built this whole room down here.
Oh,
When I put the thing, so it used to be just part of the basement, and I just sort of like, I'll just show you. So like I walled the whole thing off, I put in, the whole walls. I this section I put down a vinyl floor, so water spills and everything else like that. I went and I put even like the base molding is that vinyl base molding, and I siliconed it to the floor and everything. So that way, anytime like I spill anything, I can have it easily mop it up and everything else like that. So I'm really happy with it and everything. So um, yeah. So how this is like, I'll step back so you can sort of see what I've got over here. Um, and it's sort of like I got dosing pumps over there. The red lines are the ones
okay. I
coming
see the
down from.
return. Okay.
Yep. And then
Okay.
the
It
sub.
looks like you got the dual return going down into what is that, like? What used to be like a fuge, maybe, and
So
then
I used to have a refugium up on that second level, and then I talked to George when he still owned Geo's Reef, and I had him. He used to always like used to be my Macna buddy. Like we always like hang out and act together. And anyway, so I had him build me a sump, and at the time I was like, listen, I want a sump because I've got this this open
stump's
sump there,
killer.
which is that 90 and so I had no baffles, I had no nothing, anything else like that. And I used to always have issues with um micro bubbles and just having big one area. So I said, like, give me an area, put some socks in if I want to, and everything else like that. So, I had him put in, stuff that I can do, put socks in or put that, but I don't run any filtration normally. I don't run any socks. I only, unless I'm doing cleanup or something like that, I don't at all. So this is just sort of like to have everything sort of like come from upstairs and give it a place to sort of like calm down so it's not like just crashing into the main sump. When I did the plumbing this time, I put some more 90-degree angles upstairs to slow it down because
Slow it down a little bit.
I used to just have flex pipe, and it just went like right from the bulkhead like straight down, and it was just like a rocket going into it because nothing slowed it down at all. So yeah. So anyway, now it's a much more calmer going into it, and
Probably help the pH though. You know?
yeah, yeah. My pH has always been pretty okay, so it's not that bad. And now I put in a UV sterilizer because so I'd never run UV before, but with the dry rock system,
Yeah.
holy, do you get some phyto balloons, like some green water balloons. I could not believe what I was seeing. So same thing. People are like, just
You
put it.
get worse than that. Yeah, you get dinos in the beginning with that dry rock. You get
Yep,
cyno, then you
yep.
get hair, then you get bubble. I mean, yeah, you get every stage. You get them all.
Yeah, so I ended up putting a UV in there, and so really everything comes over here, and then I've got a pump that goes over to the UV, and then this is the main one that goes down, and then so this used to be an empty sump, and then I put in a miniature sump inside my big sump, and I'm super happy with that I did it. So during Black Friday this year, I think it was Bulk Reef Supply was getting rid of the Aquaforce those sumps because they were like 50% off or 60% off or something like that. And I measured this one like over and over, and it fit with like a half inch to spare. And I was like, I'm gonna be able to get this in there. And I was able to get in there and it fits perfect, but it gives me a spot for like all the water coming in. I've got areas if I want to do, put filters in there, I can do that. It fit my skimmer, which is an ultra reef skimmer.
Uh-huh. Good
Perfect. It fits
score.
perfect in there. I took this section, which is normally for ATO, and I drilled yeah, it's it. I
Oh, I
drilled
see.
out
And you
an
got it going
opening
over some
there.
Syperax.
Yeah. And then I went over here and I drilled some more openings. So now the flow goes this way into here, and then it goes through here. And then I put my dosers in there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it's like that's where all the high flow area where I can put dosing in there and then not worry about it anything like that.
Yeah,
So
wouldn't
that
worry
stuff
about
goes.
it precipitating or anything like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good
yeah,
idea.
yeah. And then I'm running Spirox in here, which is I had bought it like 10 years
Yeah, I've used
ago
that stuff.
from a discussion we had on Reef Central, and people talked about how great it was for reducing nitrates and everything. It was just sitting in boxes forever. So when I put this tank up, I said, you know what, let me go and put that in there. And I'm dosing nitrates right now, so obviously
Yeah.
it helped to
It pulls
reduce that.
phosphates too, man, so it does both. I mean, it is probably you remember Reef the guy went by the name not Reef Medic, but it was Reef Doc was something like this on the SPS forum, Reef Doc or something like that.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
he did a comprehensive Reef Vet. He did a
Yeah.
comprehensive breakdown on all the different biomedias back in the 2008, 9-ish or probably. And Cyperax is like the most porous based on that study that he did. It was somewhere around somewhere between 60 to 80 times porosity of live rock.
Yeah.
So yeah, it can hold so much bacteria. It's crazy.
Yeah. So I've got about 4 liters or 5 liters of it.
Uh,
Most people ask like, how do I clean it? How do I clean it? So all I'm doing is if when I do a water change, and I
Shake it.
yeah, I pull it out. So really, what I did is I put it in this basket,
Mhm.
and then the basket is,
Yeah, I got you.
yeah, and I've got some like stuff on the bottom of it. I put some PVC on there, and then I just pull it out and then just rinse it.
Yeah, I mean it's still like a lot of the Euros like let it crud up and let it get detritus. They got worms and all sorts of shit growing in it. So you can run it either way, right?
Yeah. Yep.
If you keep it from clogging, like you are, I mean it essentially can go almost like forever. I mean, like forever. So yeah, it's a good strategy. I've always used the baskets like you're doing.
Yep.
I've also used it in reactors too in other setups. But yeah, excellent media of choice.
No,
So
I'm saying like I didn't mean like you've had it for so long. How did you do it? No, no, no. When I said I bought it, I mean I bought it and it sat in a box in the corner of the room. I never used it at all. And then I was just like, when I was cleaning things up this time, I was like, oh, this has been sitting here for like 8 years, 10 years. Let me use it. So that it's all new. I just hadn't. It's just been sitting around unused. Um, so yeah. So then, right, I put this in here, and then this is where I'm running ozone at night. So this is just a little one of the smaller reef octopus ones. Um, and I'm just running. I drill the hole. I run the ozone, which is right here. And I put it in through here, and I run this at like the lowest level, and I run it at night for like 6 hours at like a really low level, and it's just there for water clarity. I've been running ozone, I don't know, 2005, 2004. So I really like it. I don't run carbon. I don't run socks. I don't run any of that stuff. So it keeps the water pretty clear. Um, so that's what I've got over there. These are dosing tubes. This is where Triton. So I've got. Can see I'm running like uh, hydros. I switched to hydros this time just to sort of give it a try and everything. But I had Apex, so I had all these dosage up here that I put in like 10 years ago or more, 15 years ago, and they work fine. So I was like, I'll just keep that part of the Apex set up because I've already got them set up, and I've got these dosing setups that I same thing like 15 years ago. I had them made by Geo as well. Um,
beautiful.
yeah, so they just come over there. They come over here. What I did though is I took this. This is from my ATO line, so this is where all my makeup orders coming in for the evaporation, and I put the line. I took all four of the tubes coming in here, and they come in. If you can see it into like one section here, and then I took the line coming in from the RODI, and it's in the middle of it. So when I add water to the tank, it sort of sprays all of
Rinses them
the
off.
other
Yeah.
lines, and it keeps all that like on like the alkalinity where over
Yeah.
time
That's
you get that
precipitant.
yeah, it keeps that from happening. So because it's always keeping it wet, it's never giving it a chance to dry out. So
Right.
yeah,
That's
it's great. Randy Home formerly had mentioned that he was doing it something like that where he had everything going into like one tube, and I was like, I bet you I could do something like that. So I rigged that up, and I'm super happy with it. It
heck
keeps it
yeah.
from backing up there. Um, and then when I initially used to have, so this is where the water comes out now, and then initially this was just where my return was. And then when I had the water coming here, I was like, the whole area is now not getting enough flow if I'm just pulling it right away. So I put an extension PVC over here, and then I moved it over to the other side. So that way it draws water from over here, and it sort of like takes that whole area and makes it so that we're getting the flow is moving through.
Yeah.
So
You're
and what I did on the bottom of it is I had I
Oh,
had
cool.
3D printer, so I printed out like a little gate or whatever that goes underneath it, and it
That's
keeps anything
awesome.
from so it keeps anything so nothing gets in there. If I like drop a piece of spirit or crap,
It's like a
it's
pull
sucked it right
basket,
up. Yeah,
like on a
yeah,
miniature scale. Yeah, it's like a little pre-filter basket.
exactly that. And then every once in a while, a couple months, you can check it out and everything. And then it comes down, everything comes here, and I got an Abyss that I bought like
Oh wow.
12
Yeah.
years, I don't even know, a long time ago. And they were sort of expensive then. They weren't nearly what they are now. So I'm happy that I bought it back then. Yeah, and then it just goes right up here, and then it goes back up to the tank and everything. So yeah, and then
So
I've got
my
an aqua.
question to
I've got
you is,
yeah.
yeah, before you get to the AquaWiz, is you probably have a pretty nice calves, I would imagine, from walking the stairs all the time. Um, Because I would venture to say you probably have a hard time figuring out where you want to geek out, man. Like down there or upstairs.
Every
Like
time, yeah. When people come here, like my wife used to always comment that, like, we come over and people would come over to visit, and then they come downstairs to go hang out in the fish room, and everybody be down here for like half hour, 45 minutes.
yeah,
So yeah, yeah, it's exactly
I
that.
would I've got ADHD a little bit, so I'd probably be up and down the stairs constantly. I'd definitely be in a little bit
Yeah,
better shape than I currently am.
yeah.
But
I'm 3 floors. Yeah, I got a basement on the main floor you want, and then another floor over there. And I work from home, so like I'm up and downstairs all the time. I think on average I do something like 22 flights of stairs a day. And that's just because the way that the layout is and everything else like that. But yeah,
yeah, it's
but,
cool, man. Yeah, that Aqua Whiz, man. So yeah, if you how are you liking it? I've been getting some really good data feedback from Alan on his, and he's seeing some pretty interesting stuff.
yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. When I first got it, I set it up probably when I first set up the tank, maybe like 3 weeks in. I first hooked it up, which was in retrospect, it's too early because there's too many things going on with the tank. So for the first month or two, it was sort of accurate, but I had to recalibrate it a lot. And then probably the last 2 months, it's rock solid. I mean, I have to change it. I have to recalibrate it maybe once every 3 weeks or a month. And it's only off by like point 0.2. But every time I check it now, it's within point 0.1 of where the HANA checker says it is, or the Salifert says it is. Um, and yeah, I like it. I mean, you just plug it in and it'll test it every hour, 24 hours a day, and it graphs it, and you can see, it's pretty interesting to watch your alkalinity go up and down just like your pH does. And you can always see where it is. And I like it a lot because alk is sort of like the one thing that we all test them. I mean, if you're going to test something, you probably test your alk more than anything else, and
Mhm.
it's something that you don't have to test anymore. Um, and then it also has the ability to dose. So like right here, I've got alkalinity solution I mixed up, and you tell it, I don't want my alkalinity to drop. The floor is going to be like 7.7 is what I have it set right now. So if it drops below that, it will just, and you tell it like, this is the type of solution I'm using. This is how much it'll take to raise the alkalinity in my system by like 1 DKH. And then from there, it figures out, all right, point two, if it's just a minute amount underneath of where your floor is, it will dose like point, you know, 2 1 milliliters or 1 milliliter. Like it'll do like those very, very micro adjustments to keep your floor
Wow.
where it is without going over where it needs to be. And so far it's been working out. It's been working out well. You can set it to be like, you know, don't dose more than this in an hour. So mine is like the corrective dose is not more than 12 milliliters, which is equates to about 0.1 DKH. So that
Okay.
it'll keep it within that range. Won't dose more than that. So yeah, I've been pretty happy with it. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
most
same thing that Mosby's saying in there. Yeah,
yeah.
I've calibrated it, every couple of months, and I now use Salifert too, just to make sure that it's where it should be, and it's same thing. It's always been about where it is.
Mose Reef asked little while back. I'm just going to cover it on the Siperax on refreshing. I've boiled it in a pot, like making spaghetti, in RODI water. I boiled it, and then I just let it air dry out in the sun. But I would say that would probably be on the extreme side of what you need to do. Some people microwave water and boil, do it the same way. But I did it that way before, Mo.
Yeah.
In full honesty, if I had to do it again, I would probably just soak it in tap water for a couple of days, then soak it in RODI for a couple of days, and then let it sun dry. I wouldn't do anything all that much more special to it anymore these days because I just don't think it would matter. But anyway, that's that thing. So very, very cool design. I love the way it flows. If you have a touch of OCD, then it definitely satisfies that eye. which I do. So
Yeah.
it looks really, really uniform, very
I mean,
clean.
the people who put up some of these tanks that you see on YouTube though, I like they make like I like always be like, oh, I did a nice job, and then I look at some of these people, I'm like, oh my god, this is like how well it's all laid out. It's all like one color. It's all painted. It's all beautiful, and I'm like, oh my god, that's just so much time and effort and money, I guess. But yeah, yeah,
Want to make
I'm
sure
I'm
that
I'm very happy with it.
I usually want to have corals growing pretty well before I worry about that stuff, but
Yeah,
that's my thing. But either way, man, like I think everybody, whatever they want to do, as long as you take care of the animals, man, do your thing, man.
yep,
That's how I look at everything anymore. Do your thing.
yeah. Yeah, and
Very
I've
cool.
got the same thing, regular RDI unit all set
Uh-huh.
up over there and everything like that. Everything comes over toilet
Now,
here, which is 45
being,
gallon. I don't do water changes that often, and when I do water changes, I do them mostly to like clean up, all the junk that's accumulating in the bottom of the sump. So I don't that idea of doing the automatic water change for me is maybe, but it's not something I'm really worried about because when I do a water change, I generally get in there and clean equipment and the sump out and things like that. So it's like a cleaning experience.
yeah, no
Yeah.
doubt. But I mean, if you got a shop vac handy, it'd probably make it pretty easy, you know?
I tried the shop vac, but it just pulls out too much water. Like I can't. Every time I try to do it, I'm like, oh my god, it's so much water. That shop vac is so heavy so quickly that I was just like, forget it. I'll just put a pump in there and just create a siphon and do it that way.
Yeah, either way, man, as long as you get it out. But no, that's a cool design. What kind of salt are you using?
I'm using Blue Bucket. I've been using that for a while, mostly because the alkalinity is at 8.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
I
then
don't that
the,
some guys are going to the mix 50-50 of the pro and the blue, but yeah,
I mean,
I'm an
I don't
aqua.
know. I haven't really found that I needed any of the other elements in there, and I've always kept. I used the blue because in the last tank I kept the alkalinity around 7.7, and anything else was very difficult to keep that low alkalinity with their salt. I used to use muriatic acid. I think I have it written down somewhere. I used like 12 milliliters of muriatic acid in like 45 gallons, and that would over 24 hours bring the alkalinity down where I needed it to be, and then I was use it that way. Um, so I'm using the blue bucket, and then I'll try some other ones some other times here and there, but I've been fine with that one.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I mean the tank's still young, so I mean there's really no reason to
Right.
do a lot of water changes right now. I would imagine.
Yeah, yeah, and I've heard very good things about Niles. I was actually almost going to go in with a group buy with somebody else to buy like 10 buckets of it, but that fell through. But yeah, I've heard good things on a few other salts.
Yeah, I mean, I think like I have a small reef, so I don't mind spending, I don't mind getting a little bit more, putting a little bit more money towards the salt, but I don't know that it really all that matters all that much in the long run, to be honest with you. So yeah, very, very cool. So, all right, so you have all your goodies for your geeking out downstairs, and then when
Yeah,
it's time to kick back and put your feet up, then you got the upstairs scenario, which is very, very cool. Looks like it's like kind of a man cave up there too, sort of man oriented or guy oriented. So looks like it's your spot, your chill
I
spot.
don't know if I would say that. It's our main living room. My wife might
Oh,
be
it is.
watching this.
Okay.
Is like it is not a man cave at all. This is not at all. But the vibe is our furniture is very modern, so it sort of fits in
Yeah,
that realm.
I didn't mean that negatively. I meant that like really positively, by the way. Like, no, I just love the design of it. Like
Yeah.
it looked very like user friendly, not like stuffy. It
No,
looks like,
I got you.
like
Yep.
you know what I mean? Yeah, yeah,
I
that's
understand.
kind of what I meant. But very cool. Okay. So
Yeah. So I'll go back upstairs. But
yeah, man, it's a hell of an experience taking time off, and then I personally had felt like I was a pretty decent reefer from back in the day. I had some pretty good success, and I took some time off, and when I did come back, I came back into some dry rock, and it was a tough pill for me to swallow. It humbled me greatly, and it
Yeah.
forced me to learn more about phosphates, which you know, um, maybe we kind of missed the mark on that for many years. I know that Rich Ross was a sort of a pioneer of the discussions of an elevated phosphate and how it didn't really matter. And
Yep.
it's pretty cool to see that that's kind of that we found that there's also correlation too, and where are those nutrients when you're testing them, and where what organisms are sort of sequestering them at what given point in time. So I
Yeah.
think we just going with some staunchy sort of like, oh, it's got to be this or it's got to be that. I think
But you're right. It doesn't, because my phosphates on my last tank were almost always at point 0.8 to like 0.15, 1.6. I think when I had the Reef to Reef tank of the month, it was like I think I showed my ICP like in that tank of the month thing, and my phosphates were like point, or no, they were 1.1. And I remember writing in there and I go, that is exactly it. You see my phosphates at 1.1. And I had no problems. I had no problem with algae. I had none of that.
No, because there's just more to learn about it, and I think that it's what I have fun getting into those sort of those deeper
Yeah.
kind of ideas into the microbiome and stuff. But
Some of
yeah,
it's,
man.
I think, superstition, from from back in the day, like when I started, and my advice to people was like phosphate should be undetectable, because it was just such a problem with my nitrates at that point were about 15 to 20. But my it was algae was a much bigger problem, I thought, when you had live rock. And we didn't really have good skimmers back then, and our export availability was not nearly what it is now. So I think that we were like, phosphate's devil. Don't, it's really bad. It causes a lot of problems, and I think that in the end, it's really one of the more important nutrients for our tank than we sort of give it credit for.
Oh, it's yeah, it's very important, for sure, especially in photosynthesis. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
man, I just got done doing a little test for like 8 or 9 days. I looped my skimmer waste through a dosing unit, and I was dosing 24 milliliters a day of skim juice. Did that for a week, and it was pretty interesting to see the results that came back, man. Everything did pretty well. So
Yeah,
yeah,
there were a few people who did the same thing. They used to just always take some of the skimmer and just pour it right back into the tank.
yeah, I decided to loop it to try to counteract my phosphates. Still, like you, I'd still struggle even 14 months later with phosphates wanting to drop off. So
I just
yeah,
dose it now, though. Like, I bought some what is it, MKP monosodium. Anyway, phosphate, and then I just dose it. I just put it in a doser, and I dose. I think I dose 0.03 ppm a day is what I'm adding to the tank.
it's
Yeah.
wait till you get a lot more corals and more coral mass in there. That number is going to change for sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Man, that's
Um,
looking like a kill.
when
So
you
are you going to mainly reserve like the top tier of the reef for like acros and like stony corals, and then sprinkle like some other type of mixed corals in, or do you have sort of a vision of how this reef is going to come to fruition?
I'm gonna sort of let it figure it out as I'm doing it. I like last time I'll put, so I don't know. I'm gonna put some Euphilia in there. I've got these corals that are doing fine. These have been in there since November. So the torch coral and I've had no issues with them at all. And then normally I've had no problem with Euphilia, so I normally put them in there. Um, I don't know. I'm gonna put acros in throughout, and then I'll figure out, and I'll put some other things in there as well. But yeah, so Both Reef asked, "What am I doing with my my Stratton power supply?" So this let me show you like the so the stand that I've got, I put drawers in, and I've got 36 inches, and then the drawers. I love drawers now. Like everything is in there. You don't have to. It's not a cabinet. I love it. So I have like all my stuff I've got in here. And then what I did for what it allows me to do is let me see if I can get you. So you can see underneath here, I've got all of the stuff underneath here, and I've got
Do
like
they
all
get
this.
pretty hot down there, Joe?
What?
Do your power supplies get pretty hot?
No,
The drivers?
nope,
No.
nope. So you can see, I mean, it's not there. But I've got about 18 inches of extra space down there, but there's nothing there. I mean, it's all,
Yeah,
you can see it's all empty and everything else like that. So yeah, I've got everything underneath
man,
there.
organized, dude. Very organized.
Yeah, well, you know, when I put the tank back up, it's not like I had to start from scratch, you know? Um, you've already got, I had a lot of the things there in place, and then it's just sort of like improving upon what I had done already. So it made it easier to do it and fix it up this time. Because in the beginning, right, when you're putting up a new stand, you're doing everything is so new. But this time, all that stuff had been there for years and years and years. So you're like over time, you're like, if I could do it over again, I would do this. If I could do it over again, I would do that. And then when I did it over again, I was like, I'm doing it this way because you know take
No,
the
it
time
came
to
out.
do
It
it.
came out sweet, man.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
happy with it.
heck yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing your progression with it. As time evolves and everything else. So, what about the weather, man? How did you have any issues up there in the last few weeks? Or
It's cold. I mean, it was cold. We lost power only for like 3 or 4 minutes. So this tank, I could have showed you so I have a um an inverter that I have hooked up to the main pump, so that a biz pump has got an inverter that I've got hooked up to deep cell batteries, so I can do about 7 hours with no power, and the main pump will just keep going. So that pump downstairs is on a separate everything. It's not connected to anything. It's completely separate from the hydro stuff and everything. And so if we lose power, lights will turn off, the gyres will stop working, but the main pump will just keep going.
yeah,
And then I've got that set up to alert me, so I'll get a text or a page or something like that if that happens. But that's really been great because with the exception of something happening in the wintertime, which we normally don't lose power in the wintertime, we rarely lose power where I am. I'm pretty close to a hospital, and during Hurricane Sandy, I found that we're actually on the hospital circuit. So
wow.
while everybody else got their power back like 24 hours or 48 hours later or more, the power here was only out for like 12 hours, 13 hours, and we were back up. And people who I thought were on the hospital circuit were not, because we were up much quicker than anybody else, who my neighbors were around and stuff like that. So that worked out well.
Lost power twice last week, man. I had to I have these I've got the EcoFlow Deltas, but both of them are down, so I got to get them both replaced through warranty. But I was using those as kind of like what you're doing with I could actually literally run the whole entire reef off of one of those, which was pretty cool. What's up,
Yeah.
Alan?
Yeah,
Um
I could probably do more. I mean, if I wanted to, I could throw more onto it and everything else like that, because that Abiz is only like 130 watts, I think it pulls. And I can do I can do up to 1,000 watts easily on what I have. But it's just less time. So it depends on what it is. Like right now, if I lose power in the middle of the night, the power, nothing's gonna happen. Like if I lose, even if an hour or two happens, the tank will just keep going. Like the skimmers will shut off, and the circulation from the gyros will stop, but the main pump will keep pumping water and circulating it through the whole tank and everything else like that. So it doesn't drain. It doesn't. I don't have to worry about that type of stuff. So it's sort of nice.
Yeah, I had to
Because it
go
used to
find.
be, right? Like we'd have like a power outage, even if it's like a 5 minute outage. You'd be doing something, and then you'd hear, ding, you get quiet, and then you'd hear this, like this big sucking sound. You're like, oh, and then you run downstairs to make sure like I'm not flooding or nothing's happening. But now the pumps just, everything just continues on
It's
regular.
nice too, then the skimmer doesn't overflow on you. You know,
Yeah, yeah, and now and
things
finally,
start back.
I put
Yeah.
in like one of those for when I put the hydros in there. I like bought the $40 skimmer
So they switch
cup
or something.
to make sure that it doesn't overflow. And I was like this right when I put it in there. I was like this. Oh my god, why did I not do this like 10 years ago? Because
No, man,
the
it's
amount of
so
times I would just like feed something or have something spawn in the tank and then the skimmer just explodes everywhere. I could have stopped all that. So yeah, I was very happy with that. Oh, Mose asked about the Stratton drivers for the cases. So I have a 3D printer and I found them online that somebody had made um cases for ATI ones, and I looked, they fit perfect. So I just printed them out. But yeah, those anchor ones, I think those new ones are those new lithium ion batteries and stuff like that. I didn't know that. Like when I so I've had an inverter on here. Here, I'll show you which one I have.
yeah. I got
I've
two of
had
the
an
diamond.
inverter on there for years and years and years, and eventually it just died. Because I guess they only last like 15 years or something like that. But so this time I had to get a new one, and I just didn't realize that the lithium ions were, that you could use them. So it's actually in another room. So now it's in the basement. On the other side of here is where the fish room is. So I have,
Okay.
this is what I'm using. I'm using this
Inverter, yeah.
inverter, right? And then this is like a brain to it. So this connects to like my home automation, and it can give me alerts that everything's going down with it. It tells me the power usage. And then over here, I've got two deep cell batteries. So they're both 95 amp hour batteries. So for this, it's a long time, but when these go, I mean, they're only good for like 2 or 3 years. I'll put a lithium ion in there. But yeah, so this is on the opposite side because I used to put UPSs in the fish room, and then because it's a little bit more like elevated humidity, they would eventually just start getting rust inside them, and then you know, I just now everything's on the opposite side. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good, man. It makes life a lot easier when if you do have a power outage, you know. I mean,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah, I like I said, I had to fire up the generator. Of course, it was raining and it was at night, and I had to go run out in the rain in the middle of the night to run out to where my generator was, drag the cord, and I'm like, damn, I wish these eco flows were working, man. I wouldn't have to deal with this.
Right.
But yeah, it's all good. I mean, at least I have a generator. If you live in Florida, you're crazy not to
Yeah.
have a generator.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. No, I hear. We
You,
have a
you
generator
live
too,
up on Long
just in
Island. I'm
case.
sure you get plenty of hurricane winds up there all the
We get
time.
windy, but we get hurricanes like every 15, 20 years. They don't come here that often. But when we get winds, we're definitely prone to power outages and everything. Like I just said, luckily where we move now, like Long Island in general is just an much older community. So all of the power lines and telephone lines, they're all above ground. So a lot of Long Island is very prone to, a hit if we get wind and knock something down. Where we are, the more of a newer neighborhood, so all the power lines and everything are underground, and our we're on a hospital circuit too, so we get lucky. So that all worked out, but it still goes down here and there. The whole house has like UPSs on it though, because I do IT and everything, so I've got equipment everywhere. And so anytime there's a power outage, like there's like five UPSs that all go up. So you can never, people are like, oh, I didn't even realize we had a power outage in the middle of the night. And I slept through. It was so quiet. And I was like, my house just lights up when that happens because it's like there's just flashing and beeping on the UPSs everywhere. So it's a little bit different experience.
Oh yeah, well for sure, man. Yeah, my buddy Matt out there, he said Victron. He builds these
Yep.
units. Yeah, he's into it. He's really into the solar. One day he's gonna hopefully help me build a unit. And then Mo, are
Yeah,
you
I think
talking?
the big trauma is good, and yeah, you can absolutely expand the batteries. You can just keep adding more batteries on there, but they don't last forever. They only last for a few years. So You know, we'll see. I mean, right
Yeah.
now it's more than enough that I need. I've, with the exception of Hurricane Sandy, I've never had a power outage that lasted more than the battery backup that I have that exists. So, you know, so it's all fine.
Mo, if you're talking to me, I've got a 4500 running watt. It's a hybrid. It takes gas and it takes propane, and then I've got like 8 propane tanks. I'm looking to get a 200 or 125. I think it's 125 or 120 gallon capacity one, which is pretty big. They, where it could get serviced, but that's something in the future. But yeah, that does me just fine for what I need. But yeah, it's a must-have here in Florida for
Yeah,
sure.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Batteries are the cheapest they've ever been. Yeah, I have to agree with you. When I bought my Eco Flows, I paid around 700 or 800 bucks a pop, and they're down to like 350 or something like that for the Deltas.
Oh wow.
So yeah, yeah. It is what it is, man. And then they're
Yeah.
not working, both of them. So
Oh,
figure that one out.
yeah.
Anyway, that's a whole nother subject. But yeah, man, very cool. So yeah, it's very, very nice to have the new Reef going and have the Stoke and have that fresh scape and the fresh canvas to work with.
Yeah, I think when you've been doing it for a long time, that burnout is like it's real. You know what I mean? Like you've been doing it for and everything's sort of like the same. And while we've all been doing it for a while, so we upgrade and we get nice equipment eventually. Eventually everything's sort of like I don't know. You're sort of like so you just sort of like that ability to like redo it, put a new tank in there, and put all new rock that's completely different, and a new way of aquascaping, and it I think it ignites like a an excitement in it that I think if you've been doing it for a while, you know that like sometimes it can wane. I mean, anybody who's known me for a while will watch me come in and out of the hobby, not really leaving for much longer, but just have like a really online presence for a while, and then not so much for like a year or two, and then come back in and everything. And that's just you can only just go full throttle so much, and then
I think so.
yeah.
Yeah, the burnout's real. I faced it a little while back, and I got collectoritis. Hit me hard, and I got to where I felt like I needed every acro, and and it's not a bad thing. I mean, I had a vision of maybe trying to sell smoothies and be like one of the bigger smoothie guys around, but it kind of fell because of the timing. When that COVID, if I would have been stocked up going into COVID with a tank full of smoothies that I could have clipped, I
Right.
would have cashed in. It's just a timing thing, and COVID kind of changed it. A lot of people got in, a lot of people were spending a lot of money for a minute, and then a lot of people left. And then you have all that used equipment coming into the market, plus the new equipment coming in, all that stuff going on. So yeah, it's a little overinflated. So I think we're in a little bit of a reefing bubble, if you will, but it'll come back,
Yeah.
and it's
Well, I
good
mean,
to see.
hopefully for me, I'm like, maybe these acro prices will come down and everything else like that. But yeah,
I think they will. I think what will happen eventually is it will consolidate down a little bit. But I think what'll happen is I think we're going to see a resurgence hopefully, I think in the community. Like where there's guys get
yeah,
together and hang out. It's what this idea here with the Reef Hangout was all about. Is like it don't need it doesn't need to be fancy. Just get together, shoot the shit, just like we would on a Friday night. Pick up the phone. Hey, what's going on? How's your tank going, man? Like what's going on? And I just love doing that, whether it's on the phone or whether it's live like this. And I thought, this would be a great way to like get the stoke going again for the community and bring back some old heads, some old acro
yeah, for
OGs,
sure.
and really get the excitement going, even for the like the newer reefers coming on board to be able to connect with some of the old guys and see the faces and bring familiarity in. And then I think that local thing, I think that will start to happen again. Where your area is strong, and I would imagine the local community is probably strong for frags and passing frags and selling frags on the side and that kind of thing. So I would imagine the prices should be relatively
Yeah, and I'm saying but I right, I know a lot of people who are local to me, and we've all traded for years and years, and
Yeah,
every time when my tank's doing well, anybody comes and visits. Like I had somebody just drop off, like one time I had a problem with the pump, and the guy came over, he dropped off like a part for it, and I was like, dude, you have a tank? He goes, yeah. I go, what type of tank? That's Fiesta. Come here, I'll give you whatever you want out of here. And I was screwdrivers, breaking stuff off and giving it to him. And he's like, "Oh
hell
my
yeah.
god!" I go, "He goes, what? I don't want anything. Just take it. My thing's growing." So anybody who comes to my house, I'll just give them whatever, if I can frag anything I have on it, doesn't matter how rare it is or whatever it is. I'll just give you a piece of it. And I think that in the area, my friends all know that I've given them stuff, and they've all given me things, and so we try to foster that
Mhm.
with the people around here. So
I
yeah,
would imagine people are hitting you up left and right, asking, do you want some coral? You're probably saying, no, I'm good right now. But you know what I mean? Like, I know that I've had a lot of people reach out to me, and it's cool. I mean, my tank's small and I'm probably have more coral than I need right now. But, it really makes you feel really good because, it shows you, that pay it forward thing is a real thing,
yeah,
and it really means a lot to, I think, this hobby. At least it this does for me. Where I started and kind of all the cool connections I made back in the original days, where people were looking out for each other, and there was a lot of do-it-yourself mods. People
yep.
helping each other. With their tanks, or I remember the Euro Reef skimmers, and the Euro Reef mods came out for the recirculating skimmers, and yeah, everybody helping each other out to do that. And it's just those were the fun for me. That was
Those are the
what
fun things, and I agree that whole thing. Yeah, like Rich is saying, get that purple millie back. I wish I could get that purple millie back. I found it one because I used to sell frags ages and ages and ages ago, and when I first set up like the first iteration of that 270 after when I first did it, I was able to find somebody who had it, and I had it in the tank for a couple of years, and then I lost it, and then I wasn't able to find it again. But yeah, that was a beauty. But yeah, you know, I think that's what it's all about. I think that if you can get people to understand that, like, you don't have to make money off of every bit of this hobby, and that trading is, like you said, you're paying it forward and everything else like that. Like, I'll give you whatever I want. Like, if something happens and you get something that's cool, just give me a piece of it. I'm perfectly happy growing everything from frags. I don't never looking for colonies anymore. Once I get it running and everything else like that, more than happy to give whatever I have in my tank for free to other people. Um, you know, Shipping is a pain. I always hate doing that. And even when I used to sell frags, I had a guy. Remember John Cispella? Do you remember that guy from like
what was the
Cispella?
class name?
He was out in like San Jose and stuff like that. Anyway, I used to sell all of my corals through him. I think it was called like Exotic Reefs, and I used to just
Oh,
used
it
to
sounds familiar.
sell. I used to pack everything up and ship it to him, and then he would sell it, and then just like take a commission out of it and just like cut me a check. And I was like, that was a great way of doing it. Um, and so yeah, but yeah, I'm more than happy to always do all that stuff. Oh, you got a yeah, Rich is saying he got a frag of it from a lottery meeting that he was at.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. I think I think he meant he had a frag of it. I don't know if he still has it. I don't know.
No, I'm sure he doesn't. But I was same thing back
Was
then.
it
I was
what was
giving
it, a
away lots
purple
of frags at
belly?
the time. Yeah, it was a
Did it
really
did it have any like accent hues, or is it just straight purple, or
straight purple. I mean, the accent was maybe a little bit of a lighter purple. You know what I mean on the radial correlates, but it wasn't like that whole world of like that accented like color on like the radial correlates and axial correlates is like didn't exist. Like in the early 2000s. I don't know if that came in with like certain things, but it seemed that like right around like the late or early teens or whatever, like suddenly that stuff exploded. Because I remember when it first came out, I was like, oh my god, like what is going on with all these corals that have these colors? This yellow on a red, and then this green on a different color. I was just it was great, but yeah, that wasn't one of them. It was pretty much solid, but it was nice.
you had a it looked like a dragon, or maybe it was a teraki, like a lime green, like a soft lime green. Like I think it was in your V2 tank. I was looking at your pictures today actually, and it was something that just it looked like kind of like an echinata or a teraki. It was, but it had sort of like the
Oh, it was
like
like a
a
pale green.
yeah, it was like a very
Yeah,
soft lime green, like very soft, subtle lime, like not a hard lime green, like a real subtle,
yeah.
soft.
I know what you're talking about. It was
Yeah, it was like a teraki or a echinata. I think it was a teraki
probably
probably, but
Rocky. Yeah,
yeah,
I
it
know
was
which one you're talking
beautiful.
about. It was freaking beautiful. It was like I had it on the very bottom of my tank, and then the same thing for a long time. It did well until until it didn't do well.
I
And
had a
then
purple teraki from Thurman from Tim, and man, it was doing so well. I made like two frags of it. It was growing like crazy, and then all of a sudden, I gave my buddy, and he called me, and he's like, yeah, man, it's not doing so well. And I went out, and mine was out in another tank out in the other room, and I went out, and sure as shit, at the same time, it was doing the same shit
That
in
that's
different tanks.
crazy because I remember I remember that happening with myself and a bunch of other people too. Where like I don't understand how that could possibly be. One person was saying they're having a problem with it, and like three other people who had the exact same frag for or a colony, they all lost it at the same time. I'm like,
Yeah,
what's up with that stuff?
yeah, it's weird how and it was a Taraki with me, specifically. A
Yeah,
couple other corals did some similar stuff, but it's good to have a couple buddies locally that you can back your corals up with, and when there are hard times, you can
yeah.
just
It's and it's tough too because I've given like bad luck just falls on it. It doesn't matter. Like, because I remember one time I took my entire, so that 180-gallon tank that I had, I took my entire collection and I broke it up to two people who were like one was the aquarium over at Riverhead, and another one was another friend of mine who both know what they're doing, and both people lost all of my corals. One person had in a frag tank, and their frag tank like broke, and he lost everything that was in there, including all of my stuff. And then something else happened, and the same thing, like all something just lost everything. I was like, come on, what's the chance of that happening? But it seems that no matter what you try to do, it's
well,
either going to work out or it's not.
you were mentioning earlier, I was going to say something, but you were mentioning like, yeah, you're bracing your reef and you're like, it would probably hold for a while. And I was like thinking when you were telling me the story about, how you had the other misfortune when you had the group meeting and then your tank decided to hit the shitter
Yeah.
before that. I was like thinking, man, he would probably go on vacation. If he's got this kind of luck, he'd probably go on vacation and then all of a sudden that clamp would just give out for whatever reason. You know,
Oh yeah,
it's
just who knows?
yeah,
It's
seems sometimes those things do happen, but it looks like you're off and running here with and especially with glass cages, very reputable tank manufacturer. I don't have the pleasure of having any his glass, but if I were going to do a custom tank, it would probably be through him. My first choice would be through glass cages,
Yeah,
100%.
every bit of the experience was good with Joe. Like he was very patient in the beginning. When we were talking to, because it was like talking through things that I didn't like, things that I did like. His suggestions, why my might have like moved away from them and everything. It's like, all right, that makes sense and everything else like that. And then um, when it was funny because we were like quoting everything out. I'm doing a Euro brace. It was almost exactly the same type of tank I had before. And then I said, I'm just going to say this just so it's out of the way. I cannot do a rimless, correct? And he goes, no. And he goes, hold on. And then he looked up. He goes, hold on, let me look at it. And he looks at everything. He goes, you might be able to. Let me call you right back. And then he called me back and he goes, I think you can. And I was like, oh my God, I want to do this. And he goes, stop. He goes, you're really excited right now. He goes, so let's stop right there. And then let's set up another call for tomorrow so you have some time to think about it. And then he's like, because it's a different type of an animal, there's different problems associated with it, the salt creep, the maintenance and everything. Make sure that's what you really want and everything. And I was like, okay. Then I talked it over with my wife and then we, saw pictures of it. And I was like, I'm doing that. So, but yeah, I mean, he was really great to work with.
Was your last one braced or was it Euro braced?
It was just Euro braced.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love the Euro brace myself. I mean, it has its other challenges, those corners when when the brown gook gets up in the corners and you got to get
Yeah.
up underneath it and stuff. But yeah, I mean, there's other challenges. But yeah, I had the innovative. I would say innovative. I was really pleased with with their setup, the everything. I didn't like the aluminum stand though. I was not a big fan of that. I just didn't feel like it was sturdy enough to hold the tank
Yeah.
for my application. I didn't have the sump underneath it, but I also had good luck with SCA Aquarium. If you know, for anyone looking for just a basic, aquarium inexpensively. But if I was going to do custom, yeah, I mean, Joe's glass cages. I mean, they've been around. What I remember from, I want to say 2007, eight at least.
Yeah, they're a different company then. Like Joe didn't own the company because I remember when it first got suggested to me, and I was like, "This glass cages? Those guys who had shown up at Mackin with a big bot, like their truck was filled with like tanks and everything else like that." I'm like, I'm like, and their quality was very different back
Oh
then.
yeah,
They were
it was different.
inexpensive, and they were like, "No, no, no, it's a completely different company." Like the guy who bought it and changed it around, they make like they are a premium company now. So spoke with Joe for a while on that. He alleviated any issues I might have had.
I think they were just
But
hit and miss back in the day. I think they did good work. I just think they were putting out inconsistent work maybe
yeah, and
at back.
it was a completely different person owning it. Like when I
Totally.
talked to
Yeah,
you, he goes, everything's different. I bought the company from the guy and put in a different way of doing things. But anyway, yeah, yeah, I'm very happy with them.
you there?
I'm here. Can you hear
Are
me?
you? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You're very, very low.
Hit refresh. This happens when we hit the 145 mark. I'm gonna hit
Yeah.
refresh on my end, and then I'll have you hit refresh. You may have to drop off and then come back in, but we'll see what happens first.
Right. Just yeah, I can't hear you. Now I can't see you. So
Okay. All right. So can you at least hear me now?
I can barely hear you right now.
Okay. Do you want to drop off and come back in?
Okay.
Just use the same link. Just hit the X in the top left, and then just hit the
Okay.
link and come back in, and I'll add you back in, and it should
Okay.
fix that. Sorry about that. So, can you guys hear me? Is anybody out there? Glass cages, but I was priced out. Yeah, really? That's interesting. Says the man with seven tanks. Yeah, says the man with totally. I'm with you, man. Joe should be popping back in here any second. Okay, thank you, Dom. I appreciate it, brother. Good to see you, Dom. I messaged you on Instagram. Check your box, dude. See if you have time next week. If not, we'll figure something else out. I've been bothering Mo, but I'm gonna let Mo come hit me up when he's ready to go live. I'm still working on you, Mo. We'll get you, man. And hopefully Joe will be back here any second. No worries, mate. It's all good. Awesome. So I'll hit you up when the live stream's done or tomorrow morning. I'm not sure. I think it's morning time there. Oh, nice. Thanks, Mo. I appreciate it, brother. Yeah, yeah. It looks like we'll go live with Dom next week. Cool. Um, that red acro that you have is pretty sick, dude. Um, Let me see if Joe's trying to peg in. No, not yet. Maybe his battery died. His one tank is for my price equivalent. Uh, I think you have some of them SCAs, man. Like, or one of them at least. I had those. I liked my 90. It was well built, man. It was a rimless, and it was built like a freaking tank, dude. Half inch, I think, half inch glass. Um, it was strong. It was a durable setup. I was impressed. I mean, you know, given I would probably, you know, used different bulkheads in hindsight and stuff like that, but um, maybe some different. I think it came with soft plumbing and stuff like that. Oh, here we go. Should be there. We go. All right.
Good.
Yeah, yep. You back?
I'm back. Yeah. Sorry
All
about
right.
that. I
Cool.
misunderstood what you said. I couldn't hear you. I thought you were gonna send me a new
Oh,
link, and I'm like, wait a second. I think my old link will work.
it I don't know why it does it, but every live stream, right before that, right at the 2 hour mark is right when it does this weird thing where it wants to refresh and like start another video. And
Right.
every
Right.
time it comes back, my audio is good, but the other person can barely hear me. And
Yeah.
every time it's like just drop off, come back on. So sorry
Yeah. Yeah.
about that. I know it's
No,
a pain in the
I
butt.
misunderstood what you were saying. I thought I didn't realize I could get it on with the same link, and I was like, suddenly I was like, wait a second, I can get on with the same link. So we're back.
Nice. Welcome back, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've just been chatting it up with Mo and Dom. I'm not sure if you remember Rangy. He was a big fan of yours back in the day. He was really excited to see you here today.
Oh,
He was all over the SPS forum back in the day when I think when you were getting that second version going. Um, when back in I think 2015 and 2017. We talk about the Australian guy Biggles all the time.
yeah.
And how I just my whole thing, I would be like, he would say some of the funniest shit, and I'd like literally be spitting coffee out all over my keyboard in the morning. And I'd be like, this is what do I like more? Do I like reefing more, or am I here for the SPS forum? And I
Right.
literally think I was for the SPS forum more than the reef, and my reef was beautiful at the time. And I was spending more time on my computer because I was having so much damn fun with
Yeah, that was a
everybody.
great time period. Like Biggles was great. He was a lot of fun, and like he was a nice guy and everything else like that. That was that whole time period was another really fun time on the forums. I mean, yeah, it's sort of sad that that's not at all what has what exists anymore. Because now it's just pictures of people's coral, and then no real discussion on anything. I don't know. It seems that everybody does great, right? So you don't have to have those types of discussions, but they're all fun to do.
It was like that photo bucket thing. Right when that photo bucket thing happened, then Reef Central, right then, it was like right there. Everybody was looking at their threads going, all my pictures, they're gone. You had to pay, like, they wanted you to pay some outrageous cost to run the
Yeah.
premium bucket. And I'm like, I just couldn't justify, doing that, and then right then, boom, Reef to Reef was coming in, and they had a way of bringing uploading directly into their site. You probably know more about that since you're in the IT realm, but yeah, it was right around that time all that stuff started happening, and it was just like, man, my it was a piece of my heart
Yeah.
like stays in that SPS forum. It literally stays there. So
Nah,
yeah, it was good
I
fun.
completely agree with you. It was a lot. It was a lot of fun, and it was great because you could anything problems that you had, success that you had. It was a whole group of people that you could share it with, and they were all helping you out when you were having problems, and then congratulating when you got through it and everything else like that. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. The photo bucket thing didn't affect me because I have always hosted my own photos on my own site that I own. So you can go back to like 2002 or
Yeah, I
whatever,
see
and
them.
then
They're
all
still
my
there.
stuff is always there.
Yeah, they are, man. I go back to my old thread, and it was like, man, it was like I can't even remember how many pages, 80 pages or some shit. It was like crazy long thread. And I go back, and it's like, man, every one of my
All the pictures are gone.
pictures, and it's like I used to put up so many photos, and it's like, God, they're all gone. And I was so sad, but it's easy come, easy go, and just like corals,
Yeah.
I'm sure you've had a few corals in your time that you look at and you go, man, if I could just have that one back. And I don't know which one that is for you, Joe, but I know my one coral, and I'm going to share it with you, and then I'm going to let you tell me what yours is. I've been in this everlasting pursuit, if you can remember, the ORA Dustin's Deepwater Acro.
Oh yeah.
I have been desperately looking for that, and I got something very close to it from Tim Aquavista, and he lost it too, which was the Jason Fox Blade Simplex. It was a purple Blade Simplex. It was the closest thing that I had ever seen to it. And I was stoked up on this coral, and it just, you know how it goes, man. When you're really excited about a particular coral, yeah, it's just not going to make it.
Yeah, I can show you exactly the coral that I'm most upset about, which I because I can't. Right, so let's see if we can.
Okay.
So it's purple. It's got a green base and it has white polyps. And this is like 2002.
What
And
is it? Is it like a type of Valletta variant or something?
maybe, I don't know, it was a wild coral. Came in, nobody else had it. I love it in life. And then it just RTN'd on me one day. I was like,
Oh,
it was probably the
Mo
one
had
time
the
where I was close
Dustin.
to tears looking at it like an actual, like, no, I can't believe this just happened to me. But I've never seen, that it was, a nice deep purple, white polyps, a nice, very strong, beautiful green base. Um, yeah, from like 2002, 2003.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's that. It's those special corals. I've got a couple corals that I've been able to hold on to now for between me and my buddy Matt. He was the one talking about the battery backup earlier, and man, I think it's going on like 5 years now, at least that we've had this a couple different strains. But I've got what is it the Greg Hill or Aquamarine Jewel? Remember that one?
Oh yeah, yeah. I had one of those. I had a piece of that for a while. I've had a piece of a lot of things for a while. So I don't know. Like I don't. I mean, I think eventually, like you just get so many corals come in and out of your system that um, I if they still exist somewhere, I'm always like, all right, I want to get this one or I want to get that one. But I've had there's so many of them. You know what I mean? So it's not like you can never. So I'm like, oh, I like this one, and then something else shows up, and you run out of room in the tank and everything. I think on this tank, the one coral I'm probably seeking out, I'm gonna look for is the Pikachu, which were
Uh
for
huh.
me was like the one coral that was purely yellow. It wasn't green, it wasn't orange, it was yellow in my tank. And it was one of the ones I remember having discussions with people where they're like, there's no such thing as a yellow coral. And I go, there is a yellow coral. It's called a Pikachu. I have it in my tank. I got it. I thought I got it from Battle Corals, but I don't know really where I got it from. And I was like, come to my house, I'll give you a piece of it, and I guarantee it's yellow. And they were like, oh my god, it is yellow. But yeah, that was sort of like the very cool one that I'm still gonna look for.
I've got the Mr. Neutron from Battle Corals. eh, for me, it's kind of doing something weird, where it's supposed to be kind of like an elongated. It's very chubby in my system, but it's straight yellow, man. I mean, like when I say
Wow.
yellow, it's almost like a 24 karat gold yellow. It is absolutely stunning yellow, like up there. Probably when you get that pink lemonade really, really dialed, and you're getting that really strong saturated yellow, that real deep,
Right.
like what Rich is getting on his right now. Yeah, it's a pretty coral, but the Pikachu, yeah, that's a killer coral. Um,
Yeah, and I had a big colony of it. I mean, if I'm talking about that size and everything, eventually, like everything else, you lose it. But yeah, that's the one. That's the probably one I'll try to seek out somewhere. Um, yeah, that was yellow. I mean, that was like crayon sun yellow.
yeah, man. I've only got like 13 acros. I've only got a little 25. I think it's the display. It says 40, but it's kind of small. But yeah, the Pink Floyd is similar to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yep.
Tiger's
Yep.
Blood. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, it's mine anyway. But but yeah, man. I mean, I'm more of the new display that I'm going to work on. I'm gonna probably mimic a shallow reef, and I'm going to probably look into it's more of them knobbier, thicker humulus, like robusta, and those wilds and mariculture, those real thick,
Yeah.
shallow water corals. So I'm going to probably do an emphasis on those. That'll probably be my next design that I work on, but it's
Yeah.
going
I
to
mean,
be
I tend to gravitate towards the corals that are like combrios, I guess they're called. They're just they're compact, they stay together, they're not, and then some tables, but for the most part, I try to avoid stags now because they just grow too big and too out of control. I try to keep things that just stay in one spot because eventually, your whole tank just turns into this big wall of coral, and then my entire life is spent fragging corals here and there, and it's not nearly as much fun. As I said, I enjoy the part of the hobby I enjoy the most is growing everything from frags, and you know because you don't know what it's going to turn like, what it's going to look like when it's a colony, and it's always fun to sort of like watch that happen. And then suddenly when everything's grown is when not that I lose interest, but I'm not nearly as interested in the tank at that point. And that's the point that everybody's like, oh my god, this is fantastic, and I'm like, you know maybe if I had a crash I wouldn't be that upset. You know what I mean?
That's, like, so some of those corals though, like depending on, like, if you have a calcium reactor, I think they're great, because you can always just use
Yeah.
it as media,
Yep.
and or recirculate it back into your system. So, there can be some uses for it. But yeah, I agree with you. I was at a buddy of mine's house a long time ago, local reefer guy, and he had a really pretty tank, man. And but he had this stylo, this purple stylo. Man, it must have been like, I don't know, 2 feet by 2 feet, just a massive colony of this thing. And I mean, it was beautiful. But he was using the Aquaforce balling on a 250-gallon reef, and I was like, dude, like, bro, like, I don't know how much money you're spending, but you gotta be whipping through that. He was even using the dry stuff and still was spending an arm and a leg. I was like, that's probably costing you. He worked it out. It was costing him $80 a month
Wow.
just in balling, just for that one coral, literally.
Yeah, it's yeah, when I get out of control. I remember so on
So
the
you just think
old
about it, you're like,
yeah.
is it worth it?
No, I agree. On that old 180-gallon tank, I had one of the corals, like one of the acros was just growing, and it wasn't that far from the glass when I first put it in there, but it was probably like that far, and it had grown into the glass, and it was just grown against it, and I was always like, I gotta take this out, and I remember I had Daniel Knopp was visiting, and he came over. He saw my tank. He put it in Coral Magazine actually, but he was like, "That is my favorite." Because I was talking to him, I'm like, I think I'm going to chop that out." And he goes, "What? That is my favorite part about the whole tank is that you've got this one coral that's literally like plastered on the glass." He goes, "Don't take it out ever. It's the coolest thing I've ever seen."
I had a green slimer do that too. Yeah, it's the coolest thing when they do that. It like literally grew right onto the back
Yeah.
panel of the glass, encrusted on the back glass, and then started
Oh, this was
shooting.
in the front glass. So this was like looking at
Oh
it. It was like
gosh.
it was like a chunk. It's like looking at the tank. It's on the left hand side. It was like an area
Oh
like
gosh,
that
that's weird.
big. That was just it had grown into it. And he
Yeah,
was like,
that's
"Oh,
probably been. Yeah, I mean, if I can see by the way you're set up, that would probably be an eyesore for you.
yeah." I
Some
was like,
people
"I got to
might
get
think it
rid of
was
it."
cool.
Yeah, Daniel thought it was fantastic. I was like, "Dude, I don't know. I think I'm gonna get rid of it."
Yeah, man. Well, it's really good to see your reef, and you look really refreshed. You look like you're stoked on the hobby, and I'm just really, it's an honor to have share time with you and share space with you, man. Like, you've been and you don't know it, and it's like Rich didn't know this when I told him, but I'm like, you were such an influence on me, and people call me an OG, and I'm like, no, wait a minute. Like, no, like Joe and like Rich and like Sonny and like, and I could go on and on and on. And man, I was looking at your thread today and just some of the names I was seeing posting, like from back in the day. I'm just like, oh my God, where are all these people now? I
All those
wish they would
people.
find their way to my channel so I could interview every single one of them. There was like Reef Mutt and Mukasey and gosh, Biggles. I mean, on your thread, I was looking at all the names of all these great reefers, just all the old
Yeah,
ones, and I'm like, man, where are they all at these days? Are they still in the hobby? What's going on? So
yeah. It's just that it's just Yeah, it was golden age, I guess you could say at that point. It was just it was a lot of fun and right, like you said, some of it was enjoyable. Just listening to some of these people were just hilarious in their ability to like write funny lines in the middle of the thread and everything else like that.
Oh my
Yeah, I thought it
gosh.
was great.
Or just some of the things, like some of the abstract humor, like Andrew would take like animal like toys and like throw a toy, or like he'd get mad at an acro and throw it on a roof and then take a picture of it and be like, oh, that's where that one ended up, and take a picture of it out on some on his neighbor's roof or
Yeah.
some shit. The stuff that we're doing, and I was just sitting there. I'm like, man, this is really what it's all about. And I hope that the up and coming newer generation of reefers can find this special thing that made the hobby, a little bit more than just pit show and tell on Instagram. I don't. Are you on Instagram, by the way?
I am not. I am not.
No. Okay.
No.
There's a big.
I never really jumped into so I left Facebook back in like 2019 and then just because I just got sick of everything that was on Facebook. And then I didn't really jump into a lot of social media. And then I keep thinking maybe I'll do something, but it's so much time to like put together like videos and explaining it and all everything else like that. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't have the patience for it, I guess, like I used to. But I keep thinking I want to do it. But other than I do check out other people's Instagrams, but I'm not on it myself. But right now I don't really have anything to really do with it. So who knows? Give myself 6 months of success and maybe I'll start putting some stuff up there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing though. Like that's a part of the hobby that I think I would like to see more people embrace, is like the maturation process of the system, and trying to find a way to enjoy every stage of the way. And with dry rock now, it kind of forces that, at least from an acropora standpoint, it seems like they're just going to be that way until that 1 year, or that 14, 16, 18 month spot, and all of a sudden you just look in and your calcium, your alkalinity starts bottoming out, and you have to make adjustments, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, we've hit that spot, we're running now, man, and it's
Yeah,
all
I'm
good.
hoping that it's not going to be a year. I'm like that's why I was like trying to get it now. Like when I put corals in there, like I was getting them from like local people, and they're giving me like a coral here to try and everything else. And then eventually I was like, I just got to go buy some coral because once you have like skin in the game and just like your money is being lost because you're not doing a good job, I feel that you will make sure that it doesn't happen. So I spent a lot more time
Uh-huh.
like researching like what is happening here, like why are my corals not doing as well as I think they should be. Like all my numbers look great, and that's where I found the phosphate was bottoming out in the middle of the night. And so I mean I just started dosing that like 3 days ago, so let's see if that is the issue, and if it is the issue, that would be great because that short circuits and shortcuts your ability to get acros in a tank earlier than waiting for the rock just to saturate with phosphate. So I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I hope it doesn't take an hour, a year. But that's exactly what it is. It just takes time. I remember even locally talking to one of the guys who owns one of the fish stores, and when I was setting up the tank, and he said, what are you doing with it? And I said, I'm putting dry rock, and he was like, whoa. He goes, it can take a while, and he goes, pointing out like his display tank, which I'm like, that display tank looks good. He goes, but it was a rough 8 months. He goes, it was just so difficult getting it to where it would start taking acros and everything. And he goes, I'm gonna say, 8 to 9 months before I felt comfortable putting things in there. And it was so much algae and it was so much this, and I was like, oh no. But so far, not no algae issues. Just got to figure out what's going on with the corals.
I think the UV sterilizer is probably helping.
Oh my
um
god, that had to help because I think when I posted it on that thread tank on that I put in that phytoplankton bloom was out of control. Like it was like literally the whole tank was just so like if you've ever cultured, like I used to culture phytoplankton years and years ago, and like the cultures are just so green. Like my tank looked like that. I was like, oh my god. And
uh,
then I just sucked it up. I was dosing phosphate at the time and trying to get it. But at the time though, I bought a ton of pods and I just dumped pods into it while that was happening.
Oh, they probably love
Um,
that.
and now I've got pods everywhere. Like I was looking in the sump yesterday and I was like smiling to myself because I was like, oh, spring pods everywhere. I see them all over the place. I'm like, all right. Um, so that was like a good, taking advantage of a bad situation. But then I got hit with a second phytoplankton balloon, and that's where I was like, I'm done with this. And that's where I bought a UV sterilizer and I put it on there. And yeah, that cleared up immediately. I was like, wow, that works really well. But I don't think that I mean, I don't ever remember having a bloom in my old tanks when I had live rock and live sand. Like I never had that at all.
Mhm.
So it was like a completely new experience. And when I first was like, what is happening? And then I looked and I was like, oh yeah, it's because it's live. It's everything's dry and it's new experience.
Yeah, there's definitely. I mean, There's some strategies with carbon and bacteria dosing that you can short circuit some of these curves. But to me, I mean, I don't know. I was able to do acros day one in my little reef, but I was able to get all my water was seeded water. Rock was coming from a sump that had been out of like 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
So it was a real easy thing, and I've got a handful of acros that were day one that are still with me. But even though until I hit the year mark, even though it's live rock, good rock, everything, right around the year mark, now all of a sudden, like if you look behind me, this coral right here is just starting to do its thing, and it's out of control. Like it's one of them stags. It's a like a Miyagi type thing, and I already know it's coming out of the tank eventually. It's gonna go nuts. It's like that stag dilemma that you were talking about earlier. They can just go crazy quick, So, but yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways at this, and I think as I've aged in the hobby and I've matured, it's like I've realized like there's so many different ways to go about this. I've tried even myself. I've done various different ways in the last couple of years, and just to prove myself, like, man, you're never too old to keep your mind open and keep allow new information to come in, and it might not necessarily fit your style at that time, but it helped me because that dry rock phenomenon. Um, I had to like submit to the idea. I had to like totally humble myself and realize, man, uh, I can't do it like I used to. I
Yeah.
can't just go get a tank and have it set up and a week later be putting acros in it. That just isn't going to work here. And it
Yep.
took me 3 or 4 10, 20 pack coral loads for me to finally figure that out. And I finally said, I'm done. And it just so happened the guy that was giving me acros said I went over there to buy shrooms. I was like, I'm done. I'm just gonna put shrooms in this tank. He handed me like 5 or 6 acros. He goes, don't give up. He goes, just try it one more time.
Right.
And he handed me a bag full of corals of acros, and I took them home. And sure as shit, they finally took off. And it was just like, but it's hard. It's humbling because it's so certainly a certain and with live rock you're just so certain of what to expect, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're questioning yourself. Like me, I was like, do I know what's going on here?
Right. Like,
Like,
do I know what I'm doing anymore? Like,
I'm
what's
like, what?
happening here? Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was like so lost in this idea of live rock to dry rock. I was so lost in it, and it took my ego literally. It took me a good 6 months before I finally realized, like, dude, you can't run this 0-0 on a dry rock tank. You're gonna crash this every time, and I did. And then I finally said, okay, phosphate, fine. And I finally said, okay, phosphate's real. Okay, yeah, you got to have it. And I got over myself. And then, and then it's good because that's when my mind opened up. The knowledge came in. I was able to look at this thing a little bit differently than I had before. And I think it's important to keep the hobby growing.
Yeah.
And I'm stoked that you're back because it's just you've been in this hobby for a really really, really long time, and I think it's important that we bring these hobbyists that have been in there a long time forward and honor them and let the world know, because your work, what you did with just metal halides alone is like revolutionary type stuff, man. Like um but you always had beautiful tanks, beautiful coral, a really beautiful eye for the way you designed your tanks. I mean, and I just can't thank you enough for sharing that with this platform and with everybody here, man. It is a truly an honor.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, man. You gotta make sure and show love, like when that's what I do anyway. I'm more thrilled at seeing all the other tanks nowadays. It used to be for me, it was like trying to keep up with the Joneses, even back in that day of when we were having all that fun
Yeah.
commentary. But now I'm just like I'm so past that, and I'm just like really tripping out and having fun, learning about you know the way you're running your system, which is very different than the way Alan, for example, is running his system. Even though you both are using AquaWizzes, right? And then Mo, who's using an AquaWizz, I'll be interviewing him pretty soon, and it'll be cool to see his perspective on that device specifically. Three different people giving me three different feedbacks,
Yeah.
and then just seeing all the different corals, different methodologies, and a lot of the old school stuff still, the old basic, like me, I'm running just the old Berlin method, man. Like I have no filter socks, I have no carbon, I have nothing. I have a digital aquatics reef keeper light.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean,
you don't need that all that stuff. I mean, even when I was showing you what I got, I'm like, I've got rock, sand. I'm like, I don't run filters. I got a skimmer on there. I mean, I run ozone, but I've always run ozone. The UV sterilizer is new, but other than that, I don't run carbon. I don't run socks. You know, I don't do any of that stuff. And then even on this one, I'm planning on um not even buying anybody else's product for um like dosing and everything else like that. I'm gonna see if I can do it on my own. So
so
um
easy.
right, I've done it in the past, and I used to. I mean, I remember even if you look at those articles like those Reef Central ones with bagels and stuff, we were talking about trace dosing, and I was
Uh-huh.
doing it back then, and I remember giving people like the recipes and be like, "This is it. This is how you can do it yourself. Just this is how you mix it. This is what you do. Here's how you dose it." And I'm planning on doing. I'm gonna see if I can just you know right now, I've got extra Triton from the Core 7 because I used to run it. So I'm going to let that run out. I'm going to get ICPs on there. I'll see what I need to do. And I'm going to see if I can just mix my own stuff and do it that way. Just because
Yeah,
why
that's
not try
super
it?
cool. That's super cool. I mean, I got into like I built a food. I'm in Florida, so we just got hit with some really cold weather here, and a lot of us lost. Florida's been decimated, really badly for agriculture this year with that freeze. But luckily, I was able to save some tropicals and stuff like that. But when it really opened my mind and changed the way I looked at reef keeping, because I use a regenerative type of farming method where it's a forest design, so you very little human intervention. Wherever the leaves fall, they fall. Wherever
Right.
branches fall, they fall. You kind of work your land like that, and you realize that you could spend a crap ton of money on fertilizer, or you can rely on biology and let worms and compost and things like this carry that load. Fruit scraps and stuff that we typically throw in the garbage that goes off to the trash. Instead, I'm working all that stuff back into the soil. And it kind of lends in and it kind of segues into sort of this mentality of like when you look at your reef, do you really need to buy a bottle of RODI water with a little bit of what you're looking for? Because that's what you're paying for. You're paying for
Oh,
RODI.
I know because I listen. I helped a lot of people like locally start doing dosing trace elements themselves. And I remember when they were talking to me, and they're like, "I'm buying this," and I'm like, "Dude, you do not need 500 grams of that at all." And they're like, "But it's all like I understand it, but it's so much more than you're going to need." And then they finally said, "They go that can't be correct. The amount they're like, I'm putting like 2 grains in my like a liter solution." I go, dude, that's why it's called a trace element. You don't understand. You're not adding. It's not what you. It's not like calcium or
It's parts
magnesium when
per
you're just
Yeah, it's
dumping
parts
stuff
per
in there.
million. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean it's very, 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 very minute compared to your main minerals. I mean, it's fractions. So
yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah.
just not really all that necessary. And it's marketing,
Yeah.
and I know, you talked about that earlier, and I'm fine with that. Like, look, my channel's not monetized. I don't have any affiliations. I'm not tethered. So, and anybody who wants to get wide open on stuff, they're welcome to let it loose. I don't bash anybody or anything like that, but I don't really, I look at it like, you're paying for marketing. You're paying for the influencers that are on Instagram that are, darlings in front of their tanks and, and stuff like that. And I'm not trying to poo all over it, but man, in the end, it's the reason why the Ecotech lights are that expensive. It's why things are
Yeah.
carrying that brand label, is because they have to market it,
Yeah.
and
Some people like, and some people are like, listen, I just want to be able to buy something and put it in my tank. And I like doing it on my own. I've always done that. I've always enjoyed, figuring out a way that you can do it without having to rely on buying it from somebody else. And I think for me, it makes the hobby more enjoyable. And if I find something that works, I'm more than happy to tell other people how they do it and how to do it,
Mhm.
and that they can save money, and do it if they want to do it that way on their own.
Well, it sort of it ties you. I think it's kind of like you're now invested a little
Uh,
bit more deeply
I
into
got to
your.
leave in like 5. I'm just like
Okay, cool.
looking at
I
text
was just
coming
gonna
through
say
and everything. So
you're a little more deeply invested in your system at that point.
yeah,
That's all.
absolutely, yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's what I said. I mean, I think it's always, you know I always like, if you come up with a solution, explaining it to other people, because some people can't afford to do it, some people don't want to do it, and it's just, showing them another option. Like, you don't have to do it this way. You can get the same result, sometimes better, and try it this way. So just different ways of looking at the same problem.
Absolutely. Well, I know you got to run. It's all good. Joe, I'm going to keep an eye on you and keep tabs on you.
Yeah,
And
and
then maybe in 6 months or so, if you
when
want
the
to,
tank's doing better, I'll come back in and we can
no,
talk
it's
about
doing
if
beautiful.
things worked out or what didn't
I,
work out.
I look, man, I was not here to look at your tank today. I was here to really just have the opportunity to just hear what you have to say, be able to pick your brain a little bit, and just the opportunity to meet you. And, I'm just really thrilled for that and stoked for that. So again, thank you for your time, and I'll reach out to you in 6 months or so, and hopefully
Yeah.
we
Are
can
you gonna
have.
go? Are you gonna go to Reef Retreat this year?
Where's it at?
It's over up in Rhode Island. They did it last year for the first
Oh,
one.
I
The people
I
who
highly
were
doubt I'll get up there.
okay, yeah, the
I'm
people who
thinking
did
about
Macna, like Macna
Reefapalooza.
fell apart, and it was like trying to like get that type of a group back together. So they're doing something like that. So, but I'm gonna talk there. Like just a
Oh
short one
man.
for like 10 minutes. On stuff there, but yeah. So yeah, if you're gonna be doing that, it'll be the
Well,
same
I'm
person.
here in Central Florida. Reefapalooza will be coming up soon, so I'm sure I'll be interacting with a few guys that'll be traveling down for that. Hopefully,
Yeah.
but yeah, man. Thanks again, Joe. It's an honor. I hope the audience can. A lot of the OGs that are here tonight joined in, but I hope as people go back and watch this, they realize how special of an opportunity it was to have you here. So at least I do. So thank you very much for your time.
Appreciate the offer to come on.
All right, brother. Be
All
well,
right, man.
man. I
Take
appreciate
care.
you.
All right,
Take
take
care.
care. Bye.